Just so you know, this is a selection that Will makes based on the guest. So he freshens up on the person before they come here, goes to their YouTube channel, tries to catch a vibe, and then his track selection. What do you think? Has he nailed it or not?
He did pretty well. I also saw the fade in.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Get a minute to groove, and then you bring it in.
Yeah.
It's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have another guest. Very exciting day, exciting times. What a time to be alive. It's Gerald from the hit YouTube channel, Gerald Undone. Traveled all the way in here, braved the hot climate and the 400 series highways.
You're right.
which I appreciate because I've really been enjoying having these conversations. I believe this is episode 4. You reminded me of that. Talking to YouTubers. I don't think that's a rule, but it is interesting talking to YouTubers about YouTube. Even though, I don't even know, do you even consider yourself a YouTuber?
Yeah.
That's what you are?
I'm okay leaning into that. There's been so much conversation about those labels, and I like the platform. So, yeah, that's what I do. I'm leaning into it.
Mm-hmm. Until some next platform reaches out to you and they say, here is this boatload of cash. We need you to come to this platform instead, at which point you drop the YouTuber label.
That's right. I'll be a Microsofter or whatever from then on.
A microtuber. There you go. It's only a matter of time. Yeah, this is our first time meeting each other, which always makes for an interesting conversation, often not recorded. Like a guy like you and myself, maybe we would meet at some sort of a gathering or convention or something. That's how I often meet people in the space. But now this platform lets it happen on the microphones. So who knows where this might go? I got a lot to learn. So I think we should probably start at the beginning. How did this all come to be, this Gerald Undone YouTube channel? I mean, roughly speak, as much as you want to share.
Sure. It's, I don't know if I like the story anymore because you tell it enough. But
You've told it too many times?
Yeah, but I've got like a concise version of it now.
Okay.
You know? I'm not sure if it's a good story, but we'll give it a whirl. So I started a YouTube channel August 2016. So I'm right around 5 years, I think like just over 5 years. I had YouTube stuff before. I did like a 2009 YouTube channel that was just a monstrosity. I also had one, you play acoustic guitar covers and that kind of thing, But in 2016, decided to make one with humor being the mission behind it. And it was like this weird variety. Like I was just doing whatever I felt like doing, which is what I thought the attitude of YouTube was. But I was already in the era where YouTube was like this focused, almost maybe 50, 60% business kind of platform. So I wasn't approaching it in a successful way. So I had probably, I think I've honestly maybe have broken even now on how many videos I've deleted versus how many are still up on my channel. Like I probably made like 250 videos that were gone because I was posting videos all the time. But the goal was just to make kind of whatever I felt like. A lot of it was like absurdist, surrealist comedy videos, like weird sketches and stuff like that. Intermixed with that, though, were videos about making the videos because I had access to gear and stuff like that because I ran a photography business at the time. And so maybe I was watching Casey Neistat, and he sometimes would just make a video where he's like, oh, I got a new Canon camera or whatever. And I liked those videos as well. So, and this was before I really knew much about the photo video YouTube space, before, Peter made it kind of like a big sector.
How dare he, Peter, make it such a big thing?
So I was like, nobody cares about what camera you use. I mean, okay, I'll make a video. What do I care? Everything's variety anyway. Those videos did so much better than the absurdist sketch comedy. Like we're talking like 100 views to 100,000 views. Like it was like a huge disparity. But I had this kind of, I'm still going to do whatever I want. And I did that until like beginning of 2018. And then I was like, okay, fine. If I'm going to keep doing this YouTube game, then I know what the people want. And so that's when I shifted primarily to the content that it is now. So that's why I said the origin story is like, it's not one of those like motivational ones so much as it was just kind of like, I was just goofing around.
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's pretty typical.
Yeah.
This platform, any platform, social media, they're confusing spaces in the sense that they all started as these user gen things and then matured. And then all of a sudden you're watching highly produced things on those platforms. But early days, it was a bunch of people trying to figure out, maybe 5 years ago, it was more of a business, as you mentioned, than when I started. I've been 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years, it was not obvious what you should be doing at all. In fact, it was barely even possible to make a career of it. And so the stuff that you're talking about, like I posted this and then people didn't like it. I posted this and then they did. Everybody had some version of that, as far as I can tell, as far as everybody that I've talked to. Certainly when you get into like second and third projects, you start to approach them a little bit differently. Yeah, look at Will's diving deep right here.
I didn't know you went this far back. Didn't you, this is going to be my ignorance on you a little bit. Didn't you doing some bending phones or something?
That would have been 20, well, he can find it. It would have been 2012. No. Does it? 6 years ago.
That's when I thought you were coming up.
2014.
Was like 6 years ago.
Well, that video has 73 million views. So, yeah, I mean, you're not, like, I can excuse you for thinking that was my first upload. Most people thought that that's what it was. But there's very few, it doesn't really, at least in my experience, it didn't really work that way that it would have in traditional media, that you can have one project or video that goes really viral and then all of a sudden from that point forward you have a business. My experience with it was actually quite different, where it was, even after that video, still slow growth. There were spikes to it, but it was a gradual thing. But still along the way, constantly turning those dials and making those adjustments for whatever it was people wanted to see, let's say. So your story is something that I can relate to, of maybe initially thinking that what people wanted was one thing and then adjusting into something else. I at least had a brand which kind of kept me honest to a particular subject, like or a particular approach, let's say. So Unbox Therapy was like, okay, this is going to be, wow, we went back to 2016 right now.
That's my worst video on my channel. It's the oldest video, and I left it up. That would probably be deleter, but I left it up just to, if any, because some people have commented being like, I like seeing the where you started to where you are now. So it's like, okay, well, there's your first video if you want.
And I think that might be helpful to people to see progress. It's nice to see that from where it all started. I mean, this is I'm sure people have posted stuff recently that is similar to this. And if they want to get to a place where you found yourself, maybe it's okay if I don't know what you're doing in this video. I don't know what you're doing in this video, but it can be encouraging to people, right? Growth can be encouraging to people.
Do you find that it feels like people get there much faster than when you started, or even I feel like when I started? Like I felt like it took a while to sort of develop, good production quality and this and that. And now I see channels that are starting out just already at like a pretty high level, sort of riding on the shoulders of everybody that came before,
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, and the fact that the tools have gotten better in the amount of time that I've been doing it too. Whether it be accessibility to, it's not even necessarily accessibility to equipment. It's accessibility to videos that explain what equipment you need.
I think it's especially in my space. It's like that. It's like my early videos talking about equipment versus other people's early videos talking about equipment. I was building on previous videos, and then they're building on my videos, and so now people can just start out reasonably affordably with just like excellent, image quality and audio and that kind of thing.
Let somebody else prior to you make all the mistakes so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly some of that. So anyway, you landed on camera stuff, and I'm curious, have you been a camera guy? Like, has this been an interest of yours always?
Yeah, but not to this level. I applied probably a different part of myself to this, but as like a tween, if that's a thing, I had like a film camera and I enjoyed it. My father was into photography and kind of got me into it a little bit. I just used my cameras to like take photos of the Lego things that I would build to kind of like preserve them before I would take them apart. So I had these like just film roll after roll of just Lego stuff. That was my intro into photography. And then in high school, I was like one of those kids that did everything on video. All of his projects were video. I always had like a little camcorder, you know, making these. That's probably where the like absurdist kind of thing came in. So I had like a hobby with it that was just self-serving completely. And then kind of put it on the back burner, whatever the expression is, for quite a while. And I was focused more on computers my whole life. So I just kind of leaned back into computers and tech and that kind of thing. And then when I mentioned having a photography business, that was something where I brought sort of like my computer prowess into running a business on both like the systems end and everything else. And, but applied it to a photography business with my partner at the time, who was a photographer. And then, you know, we kind of built this thing together. So that brought me into sort of the current climate of what cameras were like at that time. And I was like, these are pretty cool. And so I kind of applied this like computer nerd way of thinking into cameras. And that's kind of the meeting of where the YouTube channel is now.
So this photography business that you had previously, that was it that like a side gig, or was that your main?
At that time,
job?
That was the main job. Yeah,
it was the main thing you were doing. So, and then all of a sudden, you probably wanted to be using the best gear for that business,
exactly,
I presume, and you were trying a lot of stuff, and then you maybe were a perfect person at the time to hop on YouTube and talk to people about that stuff. Is that like, I'm just wondering about this transition period, how you go from having this successful photography business to being like, I have to post videos.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, there's no good answer for that. I was just kind of like, you know, it'd be fun if I post videos to YouTube. And it was just it was a side thing, and it didn't take much time, and I was just messing around with it, you know, between shoots, just goofing around. But it was at a time where cameras that were being used for photography, we were using Canon cameras at the time, like 5D Mark III and stuff, like 7Ds, that kind of thing. They had really impressive video capabilities for like a camera that was good for, you know, sports photography and that kind of thing. It was also really good for video, and it was coming right out of that sort of 5D Mark II movement. And so I think that's probably what clicked. It was like, oh, you can shoot really great video on this. Maybe I should make videos of myself doing stuff.
Right. And there were so many questions that had to be answered. I remember that era too, where it's like all these cameras had, not like now, where they're basically perfect.
Yeah.
They do everything you want and do it well. And they seem to have almost listened to the new style of content creator and satisfied and solved all these little problems that like I would have been running into for the last 10 years, figuring out what the optimal equipment is for this type of business.
Totally. Yeah.
But there was an era there where you really needed to know how loud is the autofocus, or I remember even being worried about external mics and automatic gain control. And just, there was like so many little minor things that you had to be aware of using what were previously photography cameras for video.
And if you really wanted to unlock the potential of some of those cameras, there was like extra firmware, like Magic Lantern that you could install. Yeah, exactly. Which was, especially in the early days of that, it was some sketchy stuff where it'd be like, careful though, you might destroy all your cameras.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, oh, okay.
That brand new camera that you've probably been tinkering with too much is also susceptible to death if you take your enthusiasm to this degree.
And if you're like me though, where you like to kind of really sink into something, like maybe if you got a new camera or whatever, you kind of want to know how it all works, and there's that kind of inquisitive mind that I would find myself looking on YouTube or reading whatever I could read. And then I think maybe that's where there was a little bit of a hint to, well, you could maybe share your experiences with what you learned going through the same struggle, because maybe other people would want to know. Again, not referencing those earlier videos, because now looking back on them, I'm not sure how much I really explained to people then. But again, I didn't know what level YouTube was at in terms of, you know, how basic do they need me to explain things? And this is my attempt to be you, Lou. I was doing a little unboxing here.
Oh, right. Yeah. Maybe that's a good segue because I watched a little bit of this recent upload of yours about how you feel somewhat conflicted over. I mean, this is a thing that has been a constant theme on these discussions that I've had. Just the complexity of this job, where this recent upload you did, you said what was it? I don't do unboxing. I can't even remember the problem with unboxing videos. And you guys dove a little bit into ideas around consumption and what it is that we're encouraging or partaking in. I thought it was an interesting conversation. It's been, and since it has been a topic here, I figured maybe we could dig into it. We have time on this show.
You're the perfect person to talk to.
Well, that too, because I feel like obviously connected to the theme.
Can I give you a little heads up though, in case any of your audience is like, "What's this guy? This guy's got a problem with unbox therapy?" No,
right.
That's not it. We were just asking questions of like, you know, and I have no strong opinion on a lot of the aspects of it. In fact, I would love sometimes to just do almost like a meaningless unboxing, just because I think I said in that video that, again, maybe this is how you got started. You ever just be really excited about something and you're just like, this is really cool. You just kind of want to show it. Like when you were a kid, you probably would get like a new toy or something, and maybe a friend would come over and like, check out my new thing.
Right.
You kind of just want to like be excited about something. But on YouTube, there's so many more considerations to do that you can't really, can you really just sort of show your thing? Oh, that was a weird sentence. On YouTube?
Depends on what your thing is, but you can. I think it's normal as you go through this process to flip the questions around in yourself, start to analyze what it is you're participating in. Like I'm with you in the sense that I like to ask questions. I like to think about things, zoom out. Like, what does it all mean? What is it all a part of? And also, the headline on this video is something that I think has been gathering steam recently, where people are feeling to some degree spent when it comes to the rapid pace of product development and release cycles. And it's like, holy cow, man, I gotta be on this train all the time. And whether it's on my channel, it has been an absolute crash course in mega rapid consumerism. Like, it's just, you can't even imagine the number of phones that come out every year.
I was going to say, even if you focus on one thing like phones, I'm sure you probably get...
Oh my, like cameras, forget it. Yeah. To hear you guys talk about it is funny to me. Because I'm sitting there thinking, you know, if it's possible to have that feeling or that fatigue around a product segment which doesn't update nearly at the frequency or with the variety of brands that exist, let's say, in the smartphone space, the version of it that happens here is a very intense, concentrated version of it. And so whether it's looking at sentiment around videos, one of the comments that seems to happen more frequently now is, great, another video for something I can't afford or something like this. I'm sure you have the same thing. But when I started that, you never saw that comment. You never saw that comment in the early days. It was, in my estimation, maybe a consequence of how much of it is out there. How much of this content is on your feed, how much of it you need to see. When it was 10 years ago, it wasn't like you had 50 versions of one video when a product comes out.
Right, yeah. And maybe the algorithms weren't as aggressive in, oh, this guy likes laptop reviews or whatever, let's force feed him laptop reviews for the next month or whatever. You know?
And so maybe it's an amount of exposure, maybe it's a frequency, maybe it's a combination of all these factors that might have the opposite effect on someone, where they sit there and feel resentful. They're like, what? Or maybe not even resentful, but maybe there's a just general sense of fatigue that I don't need another thing, let's say.
Yeah.
Or I have all the things that I need. So there on that side, you have one take, you have one angle.
That person's probably right, by the way. And I'm sure you agree that they probably have all the things they need if they're feeling that way, you know?
that's where I get conflicted on the subject, because that's like one level of Zoom. And then the other level of Zoom is what exactly happens in an environment where everybody has everything they need?
Well, then you have economy problems, right? Like big time.
This is just a matter of how far you want to zoom out.
Yeah. Actually, I think if you can look at the pinned top comment on that video. That's something I think that I'd love to hear you have to say. I'm pretty sure it's on that one. I pinned it because this take here, where basically comparing to like we're like the new magazines, and I can totally relate to that because when I was a kid, I would read those types of magazines, and again, because I just thought things were cool, you know. So you'd hear about, oh, they're working on a new one of these. There's a new thing coming, and I guess YouTube. But I never thought the magazines were like, oh, they're just trying to sell me stuff nonstop, you know. And so this comment was like, you know, this is just the new version of magazines, and I think they were talking like TikTok being the new version of channel surfing, and it's all necessity that will always sort of exist, and just in what form does it take? And I think when I think that way, I don't feel so bad about it. Like your whole channel for Unbox Therapy is essentially just like if you went video to video, almost just like flipping a page in a magazine of like what's going on in the world of whatever, you know. And that's not doing any harm in the sense of informing people on it. But I do think that you can take. I think it really probably comes from where you are at the moment as the viewer and also as the creator. And maybe that's the main reason why I like these conversations, is that at least if you're talking about it, then you're not blindly doing something that you weren't even considering, you know? What do you think about that whole idea of we're just magazines now in video form or whatever, you know?
I think that the main difference there is that typically magazines would be viewed as a more of a platform themselves, whereas we get tied up in this thing of like identity or influencer.
Because you're a person.
You're a person.
Yeah.
Even when I think about brand, and my channel has a brand to it, it's not, the brand is synonymous with a person. And then therefore it's being viewed through the lens of that individual, and then you start to think about persuasion differently. You start to think about...
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, magazines weren't considered influencers, even though they were influencing people, because you had multiple writers, and you imagined a newsroom, or you imagined a separate ad sales team, and you just...
Yeah, there's definitely a big removal there from one person that you almost are building a relationship with, which is a whole nother conversation of like healthy understanding of a relationship from viewer to creator. But I agree, yeah, that's a good counterpoint to that, of magazines don't have a stooge behind a desk.
But I think it's also interesting how we get so deep into this game, we benefit so greatly from it, and then we can't help but criticize it. In other words, your story is kind of a perfect example of it. Once the moment that you people obviously like you probably could have had success on YouTube in a number of different ways, right? It didn't.
That's very flattering.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
don't roll back on it.
I presume that there are plenty of people that have the capacity to talk about similar subjects, but that people have selected you to be that individual.
Which is weird, by the way. I'm sure you can relate to that, of like, as your channel was growing, you're like, wait, why are so many people clicking on this stuff?
It actually it remains abstract to me. The numbers remain abstract. I've had experiences in real life that are far more vivid as far as whatever that feeling that you're referencing. Numbers don't do the same thing as actually interacting with people. Like, I've been to events where there would be...
Like, people would come up to want to meet you and stuff like that?
In numbers.
Yeah.
Or there would be like I did a meet and greet in India, which just like blew my head up. Like, I just was like...
Especially because it adds a bit of foreignness to it, where you're like, well, nobody's watching me in India or whatever. Then you find out how many people are or something, or how many people want to meet you.
Well, India specifically has been a major growth area for tech videos in general.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. But I think it was the whole package deal. But to meet people in real life and then put faces to the numbers that exist there, it is just a whole, a much more vivid representation of that, whatever that experience is of having people know a lot about you and you know nothing about them.
Totally.
You know what I mean? There's comments, there's community. It's easier when things are smaller, and then the numbers continue to increase, and the discrepancy gets bigger, and then it becomes harder to bridge that gap. But like, for example, at this particular meet and greet, early on, I was really trying to have an individual dialogue with everybody that came up. Trying my best against the advice of the organizers of that particular event. They were like, dude, the lineup, let's get going. And I was like, man, these people came from far away. I want to show appreciation and all the rest of it. This is the one chance. It's a one exposure thing here where the future perception of how that individual views myself is it coming down to this moment.
Yeah.
We don't really publish a video in that way. This is the only video that this person will ever see about me. I better put my best foot forward here. We're like, put it out. People can do with it what they will. But in real life, you're like, damn, I better live up to it, whatever it is.
Have you ever been caught just being yourself in real life and somebody recognized you and you were just like, I don't want to say like you were indisposed, but just you're like, well, that's not how I would be myself on my channel.
Oh my God, all this.
I got a story for you. Is one that I remember. It, like you said, stays with you. I have the same experience, but maybe not to the same degree. But when the first time I went to like NAB, the fact that there was like people sort of forming a queue. I was standing having a conversation with, I don't know who it was, Matty Hapoya or something, right? And then there's like people forming a queue that just want to come up and say that they watch your channel and they like you or whatever.
Yeah.
That was surreal. But I've been in the grocery store in my hometown and maybe dancing around a little bit too excited about a box of cookies I found that I was looking for a while. Picture like a Big Lebowski moment. You know what I mean? And I'm just in there and I'm like doing a little jig for cookies. And right in the middle of probably the most awkward moment, I hear down the aisle where, Gerald, Undone? And I look over, it's like, oh my God. Because that was like, that's my grocery store. You know what I mean? Nobody watches my YouTube videos and goes to my grocery store.
No, impossible.
Exactly, impossible.
Yeah.
If I go to NAB, sure, we're in your court, but not at my grocery store.
I hear you. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an absurd experience. But getting back to what we were talking about before, I do think we are the right people in a sense to critique the thing that we're doing because we have this exposure to it that is it's exclusive. You have exclusive exposure to the process of all this.
Yeah.
Of the for the average person who watches your video, would you upload a few times a week?
Oh, I can't really maintain that. I'm like a once a week.
Whatever. Let's say it's once a week. It's, you're asking for between 5 and 10, maybe 20 minutes is what the individual on the other end of it sees. But then you have all the back end stuff, the emails, the relationships, the preparation, editing, all the rest of it. So I think it's right that we ask these questions about like what is our motivation and what is the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it and what's okay and not okay, and to be somewhat conflicted about it.
Do you find that YouTube, this is probably where I think a lot of my conflict comes from, is that it's this kind of easing, what's that idiom or whatever about the frog that goes into the boiling pot or the water and they turn up the temperature and slowly it starts boiling or whatever. I feel that YouTube, you kind of go with it, especially because like in the beginning, like I said, I just posting whatever I want. I don't care if anybody's watching. And then maybe you realize that, oh, you can make some money doing this, or maybe like, oh, that's working out. And so you sort of pursue different little threads because for me, I didn't really have a huge plan. And like you said, I think a lot of people did this strategy, right? And then maybe something's working and then you get excited about other things like, oh, sent me my first thing or got my first brand deal or whatever. And so you just start sort of doing more and more and more things. And I think at some point you have to kind of stop and be like, wait a minute, I need to reevaluate, where am I now because of all just the opportunities that I took or paths that opened up. You can get pretty far down, far away. And then you have to almost be like, what is going on right now? Like, it can be surreal and it can be fun, but it can also be,
why am I in this boiling pot?
Yeah, exactly. How did this happen? And so I think that's why it's important to ask the questions, is because nobody else is going to know all the little paths that got you there.
No, man, it's
Can I ask you one of the ones that I think about that boiling pot thing is, because you talk about products a lot, is the value of things. where when I would do my own research to buy things, and I still do that for some things like musical instruments. I don't do music at all on my channel, but I'm big into it. I have to research, and I'm careful about my money too. I'm like, I don't want to buy the wrong guitar, or that's a big investment, you know? That's how I think of it. Meanwhile, though, there's like companies will just like ship you like really expensive things just for you to tinker with. And it's like, have I completely lost my sense of value on these different categories? Like you with phones, you have to probably decide if a phone seems like a good buy, but do you really have any sense of whether a phone is worth anything anymore? Do you know what I mean?
Who did I have this conversation with? Maybe it was Dave. That it's possible to become the worst person for the job as you become the best person
exactly,
for the job.
Right? Because then you're just like, phones. You know, like, I don't care. You guys want a phone? Here's a phone. I don't care.
What if anybody asks me for advice on a phone, I feel the need to turn around and ask them a dozen questions to feel that I can offer them any value, because I can't. It becomes really hard to put yourself in the shoes of the person who it's a big investment and they're going to have it for a while. So you really need to put the extra effort to put those shoes on, and through the form of questioning. And it's the reason that I'm actually more reluctant than ever to recommend things like on my channel. I'm more reluctant than I've ever been to say, don't buy this, or this is a must buy, or this is a big win, or because I'm lacking too much information. And this is one area where I actually prefer unboxing videos, because sometimes the onus isn't there to
this just is what it is.
Have to necessarily lean into your influence, let's say, and convince somebody. Happens to me in real life all the time. Someone would be like, watched your video on this, bought it. And then I realize it's 2 years since my video. And I realize the thing that they have, even if they love it, I wouldn't be using it now. And I wouldn't be recommending it now. And I'm like, man, these are lasting experiences that these people are having with me, that if I knew them in real life and could have had a more detailed look into their needs, I may have recommended something different.
Right. But you also can't do that to scale, because you're one person and you get infinite requests.
It's like a doctor's appointment or something, you know? So then we end up speaking in these generalities, which for the most part, I don't, there's problems with those too. If you just come out and say, get an iPhone, everybody just shut up and get an iPhone. Well, people hate you for that too. They're like, well, I mean, not that I'm currently even using one, but it's a safe bet for the masses.
Yeah.
But you're kind of eliminating your own job at that point too. Recommending the thing that's easy to recommend. So I'm conflicted around
right where your head is right now. Like, I'm kind of watching your head.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like that kind of like, you know, because it's like it's so hard.
But I've gone through a lot of phases, having done it for 2 years or 10 years, 2 years. Imagine, of strongly recommending things. I've been there.
Yeah.
Don't get this. This thing's a bad value, or on the flip side of it, this is the one you want. And it's actually life and life experience and life exposures to people humans who have taken that advice, and then me witnessing that in real life going, oh my God, that's what I did there. That has kind of pushed me away from that. And I know this sounds extreme and dramatic. It sounds really dramatic. It's like, who cares? It's just a phone, relax. Yeah. But you have inserted yourself into this other person's life. You've done that. Your path has led you in that direction, and then it makes sense in my brain to be considerate of that, and I personally feel more comfortable just presenting things, just saying, here's a thing, it exists. For the most part, feel the way you feel about it, and make of it what you will.
I think that's probably the best argument for, like, if you were to add on to my video, that would probably be the best argument for unboxing serving a more altruistic purpose than what we consider reviews to be. The sort of that's the proper thing. A review, unsponsored review, that's the high level. But like you said, it's so hard not to pour something specific about yourself into the review that maybe doesn't apply to somebody, and then they tell you they bought it and it's the wrong thing for them. And you know how it was your Dave Lee podcast that you mentioned, that video where you made everybody pull out their phones to be like, are they putting their money where their mouth is, kind of thing. So something I do try to do, but there's even a caveat on that, is I try to update people on what cameras I'm using to make my videos, and keep accurate information with that, so that it's not like I told everybody to buy this, but I'm actually using that. The problem though is I can switch cameras a heck of a lot more frequently than other people can too. So even that feels slightly, I think I was talking off axis there. Apologies to your audiophile listeners.
No, Will's fine. Look, he's still nodding.
That you with phones, you with everything, well, even with camera gear. We were just talking about your new loadout of cameras, right? Nobody can do that. Nobody can get all those A1s, So even if you told people, like, these are the cameras we're using,
Yeah,
it's completely unrealistic, you know? So I try to tell people what camera I'm using so they know where does Gerald Undone, where does he use? But even that information feels...
it's brutal.
Yeah.
Because you know what you just did? You put it out there to a bunch of people who are just starting out, who should definitely not be spending that money on cameras.
Yeah. Did you see that video I made where it was like, what are all the YouTubers using for camera gear? It was like a month or two ago.
I have not seen that.
I didn't invite you to be in it, but...
I'm still offended.
It's more recent than this if you're trying to find. It's like right near the top. It's got a thumbnail with like Marquez and right there.
Oh, so you got to hear about red cameras and
Yeah,
everything.
he was the only one that was like, I'm shooting on red. He got a bunch of like jokes in the comments of people being like, that guy with the red camera. That like people had never heard of Marquez. They were like, who's that guy with the red camera? Like, get out of here. But a lot of people watched this video, and it showed the Tom Green.
Yeah.
It showed the that gap that you're talking about, where I think the majority of people here were using the Sony A7S III, which is like $3,500 US, right? And this wasn't a video of like, what should people starting a YouTube channel buy? It was more of just, it'd be interesting to see what people are using. But I think a lot of people are like, got it, if I want to be a YouTuber, I have to buy the Sony A7S III. And it's like, no, that's not what your first purchase should be at all.
Right.
So it's so hard to balance that.
Well, then that kind of gets into the realm of the history of endorsements. People don't want the thing. They don't necessarily want the thing that's best for them. They want the thing that somebody that they
That's fair. That's a good
look
point.
up to uses, whether they should have it. Like
That's huge in sports.
I often think about Michael Jordan. I often think
Exactly,
about the Jordan brand.
You're never going to be as good as these professional level sports players, but somehow you got to have their shoes.
They ran a commercial. I mean, I'm trying to remember that commercial series. Fly. Like it must be the shoes. It must be the shoes.
Right.
That he's dunking, and this is, I don't know if you can play it or not. It's was it Spike Lee and Michael Jordan, 1989. It's got to be the shoes. Crazy, man. Imagine you publishing this now.
Could you get away with that kind of stuff?
With this cable right here. It's got to be the cable.
It's ridiculous.
It's wild, but and this was the beginning of it. That the beginning of this, at least, that you wanted the thing that the guy had or that the guy used, and in this case, he used it in the game. And in our world, the game is YouTube, or in our world, the game is making videos. And so you can say really loudly 1,000 times, "Here's the best camera to get yourself up and running." And then they're going to go, yeah, but what are you using?
Yeah, exactly. What are you using? And then half of the audience will flip on you and be like, must be nice. Be like, oh, I'm using A1. It costs $6,500 US or something. And they're like, oh, it must be nice. I can't make videos. And then it's like, well, then, no, now I'll make a video explaining how you can do it with a cheap camera, And it's kind of like trying to balance out your overall portfolio of, are you evil or not, like evil's a strong word.
No, I mean, you're definitely evil, obviously.
Yeah, we're all contributing to the demise.
Yeah, it's amazing. You have this platform, YouTube, and in the early days, it did really feel as though you were when it was user generated, you were connecting with another person on the other end, and there was the proposal has certainly changed over time, right? That there's, I mean, you rarely bump into content now that isn't part of a bigger project or somebody's job.
Yeah.
I mean, almost never.
I think that's what I meant when I was like, I didn't realize that YouTube was already 60% business at that point, where it's like this was a job for a lot of people. When I started in 2016, my head was still in 2010. I thought it was like, this is what people do, and I was wrong. Like, you know, you got to organize your content and get your plan together and develop a brand, and you know, and all like.
That's what's there now.
Yeah,
that's absolutely what's there, and maybe we could go beyond YouTube and that, and just include all of social media that we have become.
Have you been on Instagram lately?
A little bit.
That's as much as you should be. I went on there, I think like 2 days ago, and I saw just to see what was on the home feed. Every once in a while, I like to see what these platforms are, because I'll see somebody say something on Twitter, and I'll be like, what are they talking about? You know, and I go look, and I couldn't find a single thing that wasn't part of some play or even advice on how to make an Instagram play, and it's all reels and it's all doing this thing. You know what I'm talking about? That like that dance one that people do or whatever. It was like literally just 100 of those. I'm like just like flipping through them, and every one of them was like an attractive person being like, do you want to get your Instagram success or whatever? And they're like doing these like dances and stuff. I was like, what is going on? You know, it was like, there's nobody just posting a photo of like cute dog that doesn't exist anymore, you know? And it's like,
it does, but it just wouldn't.
Nobody's going to show it to me.
Yeah. The performance wouldn't be comparable, and therefore wouldn't surface, and therefore no one's seeing it, and therefore it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The tree in the woods thing.
That's sad.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, it's hard for me to be critical of it, because we're game players too.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever changed a thumbnail?
That unboxing one I did.
You know what I mean? Like what game is it? It's what's good and bad.
I should point that I'm terrible at YouTubing when it comes to titles and thumbnails and stuff like that. I see other channels, you know, even your videos that are just like, I'm like, well, that's a good one. And then I don't know what I'm doing. And I've tried a couple times changing thumbnails. I have like when I do certain types of videos, I have a trend to it that kind of looks the same, and those work because people recognize it, even if I don't put a face in it and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I have this battle even about clickbait, which I'm totally on the side of people who say, shut up, clickbait's fine. If you're delivering on the video, stop whining about clickbait. But at the same time, I feel guilty as I'm writing the title. And I used to title my video stuff just like, I don't really know. Like, I'll be exaggerative, but something like, you know, review of a camera used for making videos, or like just like some terrible title like that, or because I felt like I need to be so descript and fair.
Video number 17.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so now I feel like I'm trying to find some sort of midline between, there's a good shot there of kind of, that's me at my most Gerald Undone kind of thing, where like, you know, it's still pretty fair on the titles. I just maybe put like one emphatic word in there, like fastest.
I see a couple all caps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But nothing, I don't do any like screamy face thumbnails or anything like that. And the funny thing is, I don't believe against it. I don't have any opinions that are like, no, you shouldn't do that. I think you should do that. You should get people to watch your stuff.
It also depends on your comfort level with actually acting it out. Like the process of making an expression, like, does somebody enjoy that? I don't.
No, nobody does.
You know what I mean? But it's work, right? Like there's a certain element of it which is work too, and certainly when you start, at some point you'll be looking back on some video that you put out, and you will determine whether it was a success or failure, right? Yeah. Almost always, almost with every single video. And if you care about it and you want that video to be successful, then you find yourself making the concessions. You find yourself in the boiling pot all over again. The same scenario as before. Who and what are you answering to? Who's your boss? I don't know. Like how we ended up where we ended up. I think all the thumbnails on YouTube are that. How did we end up here?
I like that. That sounds like a good YouTube title. How did we end up here?
It's true. I mean, anyway, so you have this channel. Things are going well. you're the camera guy on YouTube. Is there any potential that there's other projects that come out of you creatively?
For YouTube?
Yeah. Is there any plan in your head? Is the plan to continue to grow this, that you are like hyper committed to it? Is the plan to launch anything else, or?
I'm on the precipice, I think, of either just sort of retiring
Retirement.
or going in a different direction. Or okay, I'll tell you what it is. This is what I want to do. I want to keep making videos, but I don't want to have to care about what or why or anything. But because I've turned this into my business now, and this is my primary income and everything else, there's like a responsibility to, I gotta keep, especially if you're kind of like on top, you want to keep that same sort of revenue coming in. You want to ride it out while you can, right? Because I have this feeling that eventually somebody's going to turn the lights off on me, and I'm not going to be, somebody's going to pull the plug. Or like,
so many people on YouTube.
I think you need to have that sense. Otherwise, I think you're being overzealous and kind of like maybe dangerous, living dangerously. So I like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a pragmatist.
It's funny saying it that way. Well, I'm out here living dangerously. Yeah.
Like I'm making pretty good money right now, and I'm getting pretty good numbers relative to my space and stuff like that. So, this is a bit of a niche. So if you can get 50, 100,000 views on an upload or whatever, then that's a good like baseline thing, right? And so I'm thinking there's this part of me that's like, man, you got to capitalize on that. You don't want to be 5 years from now and be like, why didn't I just keep doing that? But there's also another part of me that's like, I would love to be able to just do whatever the heck I want to do on YouTube, upload when I feel like it, whatever I feel like when I'm excited about something. So I'm kind of trying to find this that's what my last few videos have been me experimenting, is what it would be like if I was doing that and that kind of thing. So I don't know what the future is for Gerald Undone on YouTube. I think that I'll probably continue to post to some effect, and I'm not shutting her down today, but I don't know that I'm like how long I am. I don't know how long I am for this world, Lou.
This got dramatic. This got sentimental here quickly. No, I think
I don't think I could do 10 years is what I mean.
Well, you got 5.
I don't know how I did 5.
Exactly. See what I mean? It's it's once you're in it, it's kind of hard to get out of. You see people.
We make it, if you add that sentence to the earlier one of like the boiling pot, I'd be like, once you're in, it's hard to get. What are we talking about? A gang?
Yeah, it is. It's the YouTube gang. All right. Once you're in for life.
There's probably kids that were thinking about getting on YouTube, and they would listen to this and they're like, I don't know.
You see people who even have struggled and tumbled a lot very publicly, and they don't get off. They don't just put it down. They keep the camera rolling as the whole crumbling takes place.
Yeah.
I think it's once you've built that communication path or pattern, it becomes an almost autopilot type of behavior, that it's just sort of what you do, that you get used to the flow of publishing and then watching and then comments and analytics, or what, I don't know, whatever the whole structure of the thing is. Like, even if you were to take away some of those elements, like how hard it would be to do this job without a view count, let's say. Imagine it was hidden from us and from the audience.
That's a really interesting thought. I don't know. I was gonna say, if you still got kind of like the same rewards, whatever you're in it for, maybe it's like, maybe you're just purely doing it for a paycheck. I suppose if the paycheck remained the same, you'd be like, I guess I'm doing a good job. But are we actually living off the metrics? I know there's times where I've thought, I wish that there was no like dislike thing, and I've even thought about like the level of what comments should be, because I don't know that dislikes for a channel like mine serve a purpose. I can understand if you're posting a certain type of thing. I'm not really posting much in the way of like experimental stuff anymore, anything like that, and I'm not really going to change much based on a like or dislike thing. So all that happens is maybe a video will have 1% more dislikes, and it gets me too in my head about something. That's not serving a purpose for me,
Well, most social media platforms got rid of it, and YouTube talked about it, and then it was controversial. There's a lot of backlash. I think audiences like seeing it even when they don't use it, knowing that there's that they have some kind of ability or authority to be heard in that way.
Maybe it's a time commitment. Maybe if you click on a 20-minute video, it's like checking reviews for a movie before you put your money down. You know, you're like, I don't want to go to the movies, and it's only got a 30% of Rotten Tomatoes. You know, so they're looking at the RT score of your YouTube video there and being like, mostly positive. All right, I'll give it a listen. You know?
Sure. I think it's a threshold thing. I don't think 95 or 96 or 97 matters, but
I'm in there granularly looking at the 95.5.
what did I do wrong?
Down. Where's my 98? Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
it's over. It's over.
Time to pack it in. You've packed it in already multiple times on this podcast. It's not, I promise it's not my goal, but many who come here and have this conversation are questioning their future in the business.
Hey, maybe that means you're asking good questions here.
Well, no, I think it is still a new and emerging thing, and there's never been anybody ever on earth that's done this specifically for 20 years.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of careers that have hundreds of years of history. So you can be like, oh yeah, that guy did do that forever. In media, pre-YouTube, you would have a hit show, 10 seasons would be like, that show crushed.
Yeah, they'd be or normally around season 10, they'd be like, they should have finale'd that 3 seasons ago.
Exactly. But this isn't set up that way. We're people, and we get old. And our audiences get old, and how long are they hanging in there? And how long is this a part of their life? Like, this is something that I think about my own fandom around certain things at different stages. How different it is now than it was. Like, try to think of a thing that you've been as big of a fan of now that as you were 10 years ago. Because I've been doing this for 10 years.
That's a good point. There's not a lot. Yeah.
Not if you're growing as a person. And so this expectation that I can somehow meet the criteria of somebody who signed up for this whole thing 10 years ago, that's not the same person.
You know what I like about you so far, Lou? This is my little early review, because I don't know, I'm jimming the camera over here. This guy's a ham. Because it's true, we've talked for maybe 45 seconds before we started rolling this thing. So I like how multiple times I thought I knew what I was going to say based on how you'd be structuring a sentence, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting point. You know what would be a good, and then you'll say something and I'll be like, oh, and then you make me go into the tank to actually think about it. You're very provocative. Insert a sexy photo.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been called provocative before, so I'll take it. For me, when I'm thinking about it or talking about a topic, I'm constantly trying to go further away from it. Like, okay, we get to 1 degree of abstraction, and what about 2? What about 3? What about 4? Oftentimes it leads you nowhere.
But maybe we don't, or at least maybe I don't go there that often, at least not publicly or something.
Well, actually, I'll give you credit in the sense that I don't think any of those doors get unlocked unless you're in a conversation. That's the best thing about this show. Like this here is not unbox therapy.
Right.
This here is no
YouTuber therapy.
Maybe.
That's what is a couch.
But the best part about it is that there's zero finesse, right? All the lipstick and the stuff that we do for the other projects is not here. You're not going to find it here. This video will be your name. This video will have a number beside it. The thumbnail will be you and me. And what I think, the reason that I value this is not for the game playing component, but for the actual conversation, which just happens to be recorded.
Right.
If you and I just met, I'd like to think we'd have the same conversation.
I think you know that YouTubers do talk about this stuff when they're not being recorded.
Absolutely.
You know that for sure, yeah. It's one of the reasons why I think YouTubers have YouTuber friends. Is so that they can just...
Because it's so weird.
And they understand it. It's
actually
that I got a question for this. If we're just having a real conversation...
We absolutely are having a real conversation.
Okay, now I figured that out. No, this is what I would ask you at this point. What YouTubers do you watch, and you aren't allowed just to say your friends because they'll feel bad if you don't say it? Because I think we can... If we're similar at all, you have channels that you watch because you got to support the team. Right?
Right.
But then you have videos that you watch when you're eating your Cheetos or whatever because you enjoy them, What are those channels or videos or even genre that you go to?
Oh, man. I'll start by saying that there's probably never been a time in my life where I've watched less YouTube than right now.
That's interesting based on everything we just talked about.
I'm really not available for YouTube. I have kids, and they will take 100% of availability.
Do they watch YouTube? Or do you use YouTube to entertain them? Or how old are they?
Okay, so I have three. I have a really small one, and then I have a 9 and 11-year-old.
Okay.
And they are super engaged in outdoor activities, like doing things, sports and things like this. And I have injected myself into there in such a fashion that I have so little time to be the old me, to just because I always used to watch YouTube in a fashion. You said like the two versions of it when you say support the team or whatever. Mm-hmm. I would treat it more kind of like a fact-finding mission. Like I'm almost watching videos and examining the analytics more than watching the actual video.
Of other people?
Not like I'm on somebody's Social Blade account, but that I'm kind of examining the page and the project as a whole. Like,
in an unhealthy way or in an okay way? Like competition bad for the psyche kind of mindset? Or?
No, not at all. Interesting. Like put your lab coat on.
Notes.
Put your lab coat on. Like, that's what people are gravitating towards now.
It's not really your source of entertainment.
I'm sure it was at one time.
Well, you wouldn't be on the platform.
There would be times I bump into a style of video that I haven't seen before, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, I like that thing exists. I like that this. Me and Will do this. We would bump into a channel. I'd be like, "Did you see that yet?" It would be like, I don't know, some dude restoring a Hot Wheels car or something type of thing, or some type of woodwork. Or I find it interesting when some trend will emerge as the new thing that people are. Oh, the Subway guy, the dude who was just making Subway sandwiches with a GoPro on his head.
I didn't see that one. That's fun.
so just like, he's diversified. He's doing watermelon now.
What was the old one? How to Basic. That was refreshing.
Kind of like threw eggs on stuff or whatever?
Yeah, the egg guy.
No, but his whole thing was a troll in the sense that it was a tutorial.
Right.
But it wasn't.
Well, I mean, you know what? That's good that you're getting out there and
in life,
running around, playing sports.
In life?
Yeah.
I'm really in the community lately.
I think I clicked on something when I was trying to find a podcast. I was trying to find a full-length one for my drive up here, and I clicked on something that was like 10 minutes long, and all it was, I think, was you and Will, and you're like, I'm out there. You'll see me. I'm out there in the community. I was like, what am I clicking on? Is this what I'm guesting on today?
What does this mean that I'm in the community? It really means that I'm not on my phone that much. Like, it truly means that, and I'm having a hard time even recollecting the time where I would have been watching Netflix and YouTube and all this stuff.
Can I ask you how old you are? Are you okay sharing that?
36.
I'm 35. I turned 36 this year. I mean, I think it makes sense. You talked about Dave with like evolving, are the things that Dave was saying, are they just subject to him getting older, or are they, indicative of something else? And I think maybe it's a mixture of, especially I think when you have kids and as your kids are getting older and stuff like that,
what the things that you derive value from are they change too?
Yeah,
it's a very comprehensive experience. It's all encompassing if you're paying attention. How much you change as a person. You thought you knew yourself, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh. That old guy is not. I'm not that impressed with that guy anymore.
Which of course begs the question about YouTube brand consistency and whether or not you become less authentic as time moves on or not, or whether you have to. I guess suppose if you don't evolve as a brand, you undoubtedly would become.
That's less. Good. I like that. the way that I view I think it's imperative to change if you're to be authentic. It's imperative to pivot, to change directions, to make U-turns and all this. It's nearly impossible to do that on your main project, whatever your job happens to be. And I've talked about it many times as far as unbox therapy is concerned. Is like, it just is a thing. It feels like a thing that's outside of my control at this point. And I think the healthiest way to interact with it is to treat it as such. It's a show. It's not me. It's a show.
Right.
And then,
and in that case, you can feel that you're satisfying your viewers. Like you're producing the show that the viewers want. And it doesn't have to be you and what you're, I don't know, where you are mentally all the time.
It provides you with different rules. Once you admit that if this is broadcast, you're making shows, it's
almost like you're writing for the character. You know what Elaine would do on the show, so you have to write Elaine.
Because it's not you anyways.
Yeah.
And trying to rectify the crap we were talking about at the beginning here, trying to rectify that in your own head, the complexity of being you on camera, authentically you, figuring out what all that means and how it's even possible to condense a person into an 8-minute upload or whatever, or all the varieties of ways that you would talk to every single individual that clicked on the thing.
That's a good point too. Yeah, you talk to some version. I've actually asked this question to people or given advice on that, where people have trouble talking to camera. That's a really common thing. I think people starting up on YouTube. Do you remember the first time you tried to record a YouTube video? Just probably like how weird and bad you were at it.
Sure, yeah.
Weird. You were probably hyper analytical of the weird pauses you were making and how you were breathing and stuff like that. It's weird. So I feel like now, in my head, when I'm doing a YouTube video, I am talking to somebody. I'm not sure who it is or how I'm doing it, but I'm definitely talking to somebody. It's like this thing I've made up in my head, and they're in the camera.
Yes.
And I know that, and maybe it's just from, like you said, you get comments and they grow and you get more feedback. And maybe you sort of build this gray amalgam of a YouTube viewer based on all the stuff you have, and they're just like in your camera and you're just kind of yelling at them. That's how I feel. Would you say a similar kind of thing to you? Like, are you talking to somebody? It helps when you have other people though, right? Because you can kind of play off of them.
Yeah, I would say that I would look at our production, the scale of our production, and the progression of how we produce things as a major change factor in how I perceive what we're doing. So when I started posting videos, it was just me, right? Yep. And so I was sitting there editing, looking at my own face, right? Listening to my own voice. I think that is such an absurd and strange experience that we kind of, to stay sane, have to envision this other person that we're talking to.
Yeah.
Like Castaway with the volleyball.
It's a great analogy.
You're alone, so you invent a friend and you talk to that friend. However, as the production continued to grow and people came along and the actual surroundings were no longer my master bedroom closet, it became evident to me that this is a show. That's the transition. And then at that point, I don't think you necessarily have to generate that artificial character that you're speaking to the same extent, because you're on a stage.
And you get comfortable with that.
You no longer try to deny the fact that there's a stage there.
It's interesting. I wonder what that does to the ego. Yeah.
Being on stage all the time. Well, the thing is
when you come to accept the fact that you're on stage, that's when that weird YouTuber, borderline sociopath kind of thing comes out.
Absolutely. But I don't think that it's necessarily avoided by ignoring the fact that there's a giant stage in your room. The stage being your platform.
Right, because self-awareness probably doesn't hurt either.
If you're going to be on a stage, you might as well admit that that's what's going on. And
try to be as altruistic as you can, hence the big conversations we were having of like, what's the right thing to do?
Sure.
Being responsible.
Sure. And by the way, I think the whole thing is it's progressive. Like there's no expectation that all these elements should be recognized early on in this process, because it just takes so much time and discovery to uncover what's really happening. because especially now where the tools of participation are so easily accessible,
Yeah.
everybody's a content creator. But the general consensus when you go and post something is not one of broadcast. It's like we changed the words around. Oh, you're just sharing. Are you just sharing? Why is that resulting in certain benefits that are exclusive to you and not the people on the other end of it? Like I always felt before I was participating in social media as a business, I always felt it's strange that people were contributing all this content for no obvious reward. For a thumb or a poke or a click or a pat or a kick or whatever. It was like I had zero footprint on social media. I remember when Facebook was starting to take off and people couldn't stop posting. And it was like immediate to me. I had this immediate feeling of who's the beneficiary, right? Who's winning here in this scenario? I couldn't help it. It's just the way I saw it. Like content used to be hard. It got really easy. And there's a handful of platforms that became the buckets for all of it. YouTube was the only place that pretty early on said, we're going to do a revenue split.
Right.
We're going to at least put some money on the line so that,
of course, that immediately created the bad YouTube of, sensational clickbait, farming for that revenue and stuff like that.
except I would say that actually, because I've been doing it for 10 years, that took time.
To like evolve into what it was?
Exactly. There was an interim golden age. I don't know about that, but there was an interim where I just think you had kind of a nice balance to it, where it was people who were invested in what they were doing, the craft, being consistent, supplying content for the machine. You had, without them being sophisticated enough to fully engage with the monster at every angle.
Yeah.
Like, which is what it is now, obviously, because it's so hard to get a goddamn click. There's not really much choice in the matter. So, but anyway, getting back to this, getting back to this show versus is like, I started to think about, because I had been on podcasts in the past, unformatted,
right,
no edits. I was trying to discover, where is the finesse? Where's the grease? And then I was like, well, it's in all the decisions. It's in all the little micro mods that you make to the thing, the packaging on Box Therapy, the packaging.
Right.
In the absence of packaging, you now have a shot at authenticity. At least a shot. It's still hard. We're still wearing headphones. We're still sitting in a enormous room. Like, there's problems. But you have a shot at having an exchange here. Conversation so far for me is like the best version of the opportunity that I've seen to put something out into the world that is abundant, has the nuance necessary for you to not feel guilty about.
And I think the way that you're formatting it is, like you said, the packaging, whatever. Before you even mentioned that, we talked about, well, why don't you just put up like just a plain thumbnail with number 13 or whatever? You said that's essentially what you're doing for the podcast, right? So
it's pretty close to that. Yeah. Who knows? I mean, this guy might go put like a flame emoji in it.
I'll put a frog in a pot.
Yeah. I mean, well, for the clips, it's free reign. The clips are YouTube. I don't think this is YouTube right here. Like, that's what I like about it. This does not feel like YouTube. I mean, you could tell me, I should ask you. You're here, you're sitting there. This is a thing. We're recording this. Does this feel like YouTube to you?
My head is so far up YouTube's butt, whatever that means right now, that I kept feeling guilty because I was like, oh yeah, that's good. I'm doing visual things. It's like, well, what if people are listening to this? I can't get my head out of the visual space. So I'm very YouTube oriented right now, and I sometimes I think I have difficulty seeing the different, viewing frames for different people. But I also don't know that I have a clear indication of what YouTube is. I know what like my specific YouTube is, right? And I know what the people who do the same thing I do in my space, like you said, you can go around looking at other videos and you know that there are only going to be iterations on what photo video YouTubers are doing right now. But that's also such a small slice of YouTube that I feel like I have no real sense of how to pin YouTube as like one simple thing. But this feels like it belongs as another slice of YouTube, you know? Because I mean, with Joe Rogan being on Spotify, that huge deal, yet I still picture him in his little podcast setup, sitting across from somebody. That's what I see. So I see that as a YouTube video. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't, though. So maybe all I'm saying is don't listen to me. What do I know?
No, I think it's fair. I think a lot of people have a different perception of what constitutes YouTube. I think this kind of maybe exposes more my conflict or difficulty in like how much time I spend thinking about a video versus the other accoutrement, the other pieces around it, like thumbnail, title. That to me, it was like, I don't know, maybe 50-50. Like, do people even want to see that? Is it a good concept, let's say? There's none of that piece here. This is just record.
I love the freedom there. That's kind of when I was like, I felt like I was at a precipice where like I wish I could just do whatever I want to do. I don't know if it would just become conversations. I don't know what it would be. Like obviously I'm doing this thing with Josh from Make Art Now. That's the last like 7 or 8 videos where we're just having this kind of conversation, you know, and seeing if there's a video in there that we can, we hired an editor to see if we can like, if an editor could find a like 15 to 20 minute video in that maybe would present some kind of value based on what we're doing. But I like it because there's a bit of like freedom in that, you know? And it seems like, I mean, if you're only 4 episodes deep, what do you know? But it seems like you're enjoying that aspect of this.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because it's 4 episodes recorded, but it's probably 1,000 conversations that have felt this way.
So you're just trying to seize it, like grab those conversations.
Almost more like a documentary of such. Like, this is, what is the date today?
26, 25, 26?
Well, I don't know when people are watching it, but it's right now, today, this is Gerald Undone, August 26th, 2021. COVID. But like I'm saying, would you deny that it's you?
No, it's me.
Yeah, it's you. It's you today. That feels like it's worth something. I don't know. People can you can disagree with me. Other people can disagree with me, but I never dread sitting down here because I feel that I'm more participant and observer, less of a manipulator in that. When I sit down here, it's full comfort level. I'm just here, you know. I wish
I'm really actually happy for you about that. You know, that's awesome.
It's not any processes running in the background. It's just present.
That sounds enjoyable in your head. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that you're having the same experience of
for
being
me,
present.
It's a lot less pressure for me in general because I'm not the one that's going to be posting it and everything else. So being a guest is great for that. It'd be great if you could almost like be a guest on your own, have the same guest mentality, but in your own channel, you know? Because when you're posting to your main and it's going to be some kind of flagship video, there's a lot of stakes and pressure and stuff.
I like what you just said. Be a guest on your own channel.
At least have that, whatever that freedom
sounds
is.
Really cool.
Put that in a bottle and drink it.
Well, it just sounds more psychologically healthy because, man, it's like sometimes we're holding too many strings, you know?
Again, you're a person in a closet talking to themselves, editing themselves, listening to themselves, watch themselves back 100 times.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm talking about Bo Burnham right now. Right?
I was talking about you, but it's
No, I know, but that's why everybody in the space
that's what Bo
resonated with
was
it.
About,
yeah.
That inside, man.
I mean, because it's just that's all of us. That's all of us.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
couldn't resonate harder with something, but I also could never produce or articulate something that good either. Yeah.
But I also couldn't help but think, okay, this is on Netflix.
Why isn't it on YouTube?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Isn't that weird? Shouldn't that have been on YouTube?
Or maybe it's right that it's not because you get to step away and look at it.
Maybe it's right that it's not.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help but consider the platform and like what and how our different approach to different platforms exist from a attention perspective. Like you see the Netflix logo and you're like, okay, I can stay in one spot for a while.
Right. Yeah. Because it's feature length, right? It's like 86 minutes long.
I can sit down.
Yeah.
And yet when you see the YouTube logo, flip, and they're not helping, obviously, with shorts, bang, 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 is the brand around the platform encourages the behavior. It creates the activity is relative to the proposal. And in this case, the proposal is, and we're all learning all the time, whatever YouTube happens to be, but the proposal is all the videos all the time, everything you want. What was this? What was it?
A little bit of everything all the time.
A little bit of everything all the time.
Yeah.
And then we get upset when we get a, 4-minute watch time. It's like, no, that's the thing.
I'm totally one of those people that gets kind of like about the lack of attention span, and how we push and promote it further in that direction.
Oh, baby.
Attention spans are something we should be developing.
Baby.
Not rewarding, I know you already talked about this, so I don't want to, go over this entire again, but if I'll add a note to your other conversations, it's that has anything ever been done that's worthwhile that came from having a short attention span ever, and in any field, even Bo Burnham's inside? You know what I mean? Like, has anything ever been where you go, have you seen this person's skill? Have you seen that thing that was made? Everything requires prolonged focus. Mm-hmm. And we're in an age where people are struggling with that for real reasons. And so we as creators and platforms and everything should be building that back up, not constantly making it shorter and rewarding with whatever they're doing with their numbers and their brain chemicals that you're just like, yes. We need to work against that as a society, because I think at some point we're going to lose more great things. We'll have fewer great things coming if we don't have attention spans.
Yeah, or you create a discrepancy between those that are capable, those that produce, and then those that consume, those that have,
and it'll be a huge
gap
yeah.
Because there will be
and the people in the middle of the gap, people selling medication. that's what'll be bridging the gap, pharmaceuticals.
That's pretty good too, like what you said, not the idea of it, but not actually doing
like,
it.
How can I get in on that business?
Yeah, it's like what do they call it? Attention economy. I mean, those that are capable of spending enough time creating a thing in order to accumulate other people's attention and erode other people's attention span. Right? That's terrifying. That you have these sophisticated minds working effortlessly, spending enormous amounts of attention in order to extract the attention span from others.
Yeah.
Like building the algorithms that will do it. Like these people have a tremendous attention span. Those that
it's
are
so good. That's so good. Yeah. That's what happens, I guess, and it makes it almost like, yeah, like you're weaponizing against the peons or whatever who,
attention exchange. Like I'll trade you. I'll trade my extreme amount of attention, like because we're crazy, right? Anybody publishing anything is doing like way more effort than it looks like.
At best, they're all like non-neurotypical, and at worst, like I said, we're like psychopaths.
Yeah, exactly. And so we will trade 10 minutes of our time for 1 minute of 10,000 people's time.
Yeah.
And then the math works for us, or for those building the algorithms, or for those maintaining the platforms, or whatever it happens to be.
Some kind of, and because of residuals too, it's like this like compounding interest of attention where you're like, this video I'll grab a couple minutes forever, hopefully, or whatever, in the short term.
I'll take your time forever.
Yeah. You'll keep coming back due to search or something.
I'll have some of that time right there. You got any time in your pocket? Today's sponsor, Blenders Eyewear, fresh out of San Diego, California. These were started by Chase Fisher, and he was selling his beachy shades out of his backpack while doubling as a surf instructor on Pacific Beach. He wanted to create adventurous, mid-priced eyewear with the same cool factor as other leading styles. You can get cool looks like this for the summer. You can also get prescription sunglasses. They have the pair that will float as well. And for myself, actually, what I put it in order, because I need a lot of sunglasses when I'm out on a baseball diamond. I've been doing a lot of baseball coaching, and I don't know if you knew this, Will, but you got to have the shades on. Mm-hmm. The sun is dipping. You play in the evening. It's square in your eyes. You got to have some protection. I'm excited to get my first pair in the mail right now. I'm looking for the Black Jacket. That's a polarized lens as well. There's more information about polarized lenses on their website, but can't wait to throw those on. Next ad read, I'm gonna have the shades on during the read.
All right.
If that's all right with you, Will.
Yep.
Their team has designers constantly coming out with new styles. Head over to the website, check it out for yourself. To score 15% off your Blenders purchase, visit blenderseyewear.com and enter promo code LouLaterVIP. That's blenderseyewear.com, code LouLaterVIP for 15% off. Blenders, rocked with pride worldwide. Click the link in the description. Don't forget the promo code LouLaterVIP. Something I wanted to ask you about was, and I'm not sure if this is the case for you or not. For me, I went from one person doing everything to a team of people. Do you currently work with anybody else? And if not, do you have any plans to work with anyone else for your stuff, your channel?
I've, contemplated that quite a bit. The only thing right now that I'm working on is for that sort of podcasty kind of thing that we're doing. We have an editor doing that because we thought it'd be more fun if somebody could kind of make fun of us. But outside of that, no. I've had help from, at different intervals, people helping me with things, but never hired somebody as like a key person where maybe they help shoot, edit, that whole thing. But I've definitely considered it, and I've also liked the idea. I've seen other channels do this kind of thing too, where they have like one person, and even kind of like what you do here with Will, where kind of like off screen sometimes you can, almost talk to him a little bit in the video. Mm-hmm. I thought that could be a fun concept too, and maybe help with, volume, just like getting more videos up, and maybe even keeping you more accountable. Or I feel like there's a lot of advantages to it, where maybe you can get kind of like in a funk, but then having somebody else puts accountability, but also maybe the other person has some excitement that day. So it kind of can help, So those are all the positives I thought about, things that are motivating me to do it. And I would say right around when I was thinking about doing it, as Bo Burnham would say, this funny thing happened, where the world shut down.
Oh, right, that thing.
So
I almost forgot about that thing.
And then I entered this like new phase of, okay, well, if there's ever been a better job to have right now, I guess it's YouTube. So then it just kind of like went hard during the initial thralls of COVID there on back to being like solo YouTuber. And, everything was working out really well because YouTube was just bumping when COVID first, happened. So it kind of, disheveled my thought process. But now I'm back again because, like I said, I'm on that precipice, right? So something else that could be a next avenue is, maybe growing a team or something, Yeah,
well, there's a couple reasons for asking. Obviously, just curiosity around whatever your plans happen to be, but also on a psychological front, you've been 5 years doing it yourself. I think for myself, by that point, I was like, I'm not talking to anybody. I need some people around. Like just the difference in experience of working on something on a daily basis where you have exposure to other people versus not.
Yeah, I think that's probably healthier.
That's what I started to think of. That started to cross my mind. Now I know I'm sure you still see people, talk to people. You actually make friends in the space and things like this. There's ways to alleviate some of that, but the craziness of the ups and downs and things, the consequence, the damage done can be distributed as opposed to being solely yours once you have a team. Like the team can amplify the ups and can also insulate the downs a little bit.
That totally seemed like, I don't know, but that totally is what I'm thinking is the main reason to do it. You know?
Yeah, and so a lot of channels and projects end up that way. Some that doesn't work for them, you know. Some it can be in an independent endeavor and be totally healthy if that's suitable for that individual. But from myself, I mean, oftentimes we come into this space and we would just talk for an hour. You know what I mean? Like just all of us.
Oh.
We would just stand around, sometimes to a detriment. People start getting upset and saying we have things to do and this and that. But it's amazing the amount of garbage you got to get out before you feel clean enough to go make something. Before you feel like ready, I guess. You got to just do some garbage collection. And I haven't found a better way of doing that than just talking.
That seems to be your sort of perfect answer to everything at the phase of your life you're in right now. These conversations, talking to, you know, with the people you're working with or whatever. Your talking's good for you.
Talking is good for me. Talking is good. Yeah, it helps to kind of it's almost like a little broom traveling around into the crevices of the mind and just unlocking things that you probably shouldn't be holding on to, that you can feel lighter. And it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's also a way in which you build bonds. It's a way in which you strengthen your position, feel better about things because you're it's interactive. You're engaging in a real way, not in a distant way or virtual way or something like that. Like I feel that there's a difference there. There's all these like micro aspects of real life communication that are not available through all the means and things that we've built.
Totally.
Which is the reason up until this point, I haven't, even with this show, had anybody come in virtually. It kind of limits the opportunities.
Speaking of that, by the way, where's Dave from? Is he like California or is he from Canada?
No, Dave's from here. Yeah.
Really?
Everybody that's been on has been local.
See, I thought that was the trend, but then I don't know why I thought for sure that Dave was from like California or something like that.
There's a lot of people from California.
Yeah. You're either from like the GTA area or you're the LA area.
Kind of. Yeah. It's kind of weird how that worked out that way, but there's a lot of people doing things here locally, which is great for us.
Is Dave in like the GTA kind of zone?
Yeah, he's super close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you, obviously, I'm not trying to dox you or whatever, are you relatively close to the studio where you like, you know, just drive in kind of thing, like go to work? Or?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah?
I can't, I'm not trying to have a big commute or something. Willie does the same, actually. He made a smart choice in life, like the time
moved
choice.
Moved in with you?
Well, not far. Let's put it that way. You know, not far. He made that. Well, that's funny, man. It comes back to that attention thing. Time, the way you view it, right? Like you made a decision to say, I got to get closer to the studio.
Mm-hmm. To save drive minutes and stuff?
Yeah, the commute can be horrible.
It's such an ineffective use of time, or it just, you can't do much with a commute. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can listen to this, I suppose. But that's about like what else you can do.
Be careful. No, you're right, and I think that's actually why people gravitate towards this type of content, because it makes the commute bearable.
Yeah,
it makes and so many people have to deal with it. It seems like the majority of people have some form of a commute. Average commute around here, I think, is at least 40 minutes, something like that. I don't remember.
That's why I was asking, because I know that, like, you know, the GTA mindset or whatever. Like, there's people who live outside of Barrie and they work downtown.
It's and that's a lot of big cities, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what ends up happening is that, people might need a little bit more space, but they have to work in the city, and that's just how it ends up going. But it's it's obviously not ideal. It's great to be able to be in a position to be able to set things up exactly the way you want, but that's just not the reality for most people.
Especially with the crazy housing situation we're in and everything,
The housing situation. I didn't expect to get here. But you're right. It is a crazy housing situation.
You gotta make different choices than you might have thought you had to make.
Yeah.
It's basically,
Yeah, people end up with imperfect choice type scenarios. Absolutely.
Question unrelated to everything, but
Yeah, go ahead.
what do you actually call yourself versus the different names that I hear Lou call you all the time?
I'm referred to as Will. I call myself Will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember like watching your videos. You know what's fun? You were in my regular rotation for, breakfast YouTube videos when you were doing the gray backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I just suggested that you don't want to watch anymore. But
Yeah, which is completely fine.
no, it's
honestly.
more just like I do less YouTube as well.
Yeah.
It's for entertainment. But yeah, I used to always, unbox there's a video. And you were always like, ooh, Willie do with the what you do, or whatever kind of thing. And I was like, what is that guy's name anyway?
Thanks, Kirk.
Just
Kirk,
a
you want to
rhyme.
just say hello to the people real quick because you brought coffee. I feel like just throw something in there. No, say
What up, everyone?
there you go. Thank you, Kirk. This is about to be a delicious coffee. It's real stuff happening here.
Brand deal.
Why didn't you get a
Tim Hortons.
coffee? Were you offered?
Yeah, you offered me. I just don't,
You were
don't
offered.
drink coffee. Yeah.
You were offered coffee. That's the only fair thing to do. Willie Doo has had names. He's had many different, but it's all endearing stuff, What? Don't shake your head. No, come on, man. But he happens to have just an amazing name.
Is that a last name incorporated into it? Is that what it is like?
His name is Will Doo.
Yeah, it's a pretty good name.
And before,
Thanks.
and
You got
and
some nickname flexibility there.
Will Doo? Are you kidding me? Like when I saw this guy,
There's so many businesses you could create with that. Is like
That's true. Yeah.
he
Will do
used to-
construction. Or whatever, you know what I
He
mean?
had Will Do Art. That was his URL. Do you still have it?
No,
What happened?
I don't know. I didn't pay the domain.
You should have hung on to that, man. Will Do Art is an amazing domain.
Yeah, for $10 or whatever, you let it slide. Now it's worth 10,000.
Someone else will get it.
Oh man. Yeah, domains. You have any domains?
I've got GeraldUndone.com.
That's it. You're not one of these guys that gets like a cool idea, registers the domain, and then does nothing with it. Because I probably have 1,000.
At one point, I think I had deepthoughts.com.
Whoa, that's a domain.
I had that one. I had a reasonably successful blog back in the day, and I stole the idea from SNL. Used to have like a sketch where they would just say these like really absurd things, and it'd be like more deep thoughts or whatever. you know?
Yeah, I feel like I recall.
So I made like a little blog about that, and this is back when people read things.
Sure.
Um,
Back to that attention span.
yeah.
Now it's just parked. I don't think you should have let that
Jack
one
Handy.
lapse.
That was the SNL one. Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy.
I think you could. That could be worth some money right now.
I don't know. Nobody else is using it for anything, so maybe not.
Well, click buy this domain. Let's see what the price of it is now. I bet you they want 10 grand at least. Oh, this is not a great
What was the
sales pitch. at
Geocities
all.
website?
Yeah.
The CSS is not here.
No,
It's downloaded.
refresh that page. Refresh that page.
no.
Come on, man. No way. There you go. Offer bids 25, traffic 89.
Nah, that's not a big mover. I'm okay with it. I don't have any regrets letting that one go.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's better than average. I have worse URLs than that that I had big plans for. Well, part of it, this is a thing that I've noticed, like about. I'm sure other people have the same experience where you have this amazing idea, but for whatever reason you can't do it, whether like time wise or something like this. Well, you think it's an amazing idea, and sometimes sitting around and generating concepts is more fun than actually doing them. Has this been a theme for you?
Yeah, like theory crafting in games and other aspects of life, I really like doing. But then when it comes to actually applying it to, here's an example. Did you ever play League of Legends?
Never.
I had a phase, for better or worse, where I was like big into League of Legends, but I enjoyed more theory crafting on like what would be the best combinations, the best characters and
Okay,
stuff, and like busting out Excel and stuff.
Sure.
And then when I'd actually go to play, I'd be like, well, the game doesn't play out like that, so it's not as fun as the actual crafting.
Right.
It's kind of like Sims, where you can build the house or you can just go along with the life of the Sims. You can just like keep going with it.
And one, I think, appeals a different side of the brain than the other. I'm not much of a competitive gamer, but I like things. Kind of like I don't really like going to chess tournaments, but I really like doing chess puzzles and reading about chess and stuff like that. But I'm not competitive. So the thing you need to be on the edge of like being competitive at something like that is a whole different thing than just wanting to immerse yourself in the minutia of it,
That's interesting. So you're not competitive?
No, not at all. Like I used to think that I've accepted it now, but when online games first started going in that direction, I used to think this is bad for gaming.
But no, never mind competitive in gaming. I'm talking about competitive in general.
Yeah, no, I'm not really competitive at all, I would say.
Is that something that you were always aware of? You say it with some degree of certainty.
I think like I probably just learned it over time, like at different applications. Like if I was on a sports team and I would see certain energy and everybody, and I couldn't relate to the energy at all. They'd be like, "You get in there and you take them down. You're a big guy. Why aren't you throwing your weight around?" It was like, "Because I don't care." You know what I mean? Like that's really, I'm just here to have fun and run around, guys.
Okay, so you recognize this early on.
Yeah, the joke is like, when did you know you were different or whatever? Right? Well, I was like, yeah, you could spot it at some point or other.
Right.
More like probably late teens, 20s, or whatever. It's like, I don't have the same drive in these aspects,
Right. Yeah.
One of the reasons why I'm appreciative of YouTube is I feel like I found a place where I can just kind of be a nerd that spouts the nonsense that I'm into, and there's a place for it.
It does sound to a certain degree, though, that maybe a bit of the competition bug got you once you got on YouTube, or still zero.
I don't know what form would it take on YouTube.
Well, even if you're competing with yourself, playing it like golf, let's say, if you put out a project and it doesn't do as well, I'm sure you notice. I'm sure that's not what you want. YouTube is inherently competitive, whether with others or with your own previous performance.
I mean, I guess I do tackle like myself a lot and try. Like I'm a perfectionist, but I think of that in a different way than whatever this other sort of competitive spirit where it's like you want to win against somebody else.
Well, yeah, that's why I said golf specifically. Many people just compete against their
perfecting
own
your
previous
game
score. Yeah, in something like this.
That I think I could get behind. What does that even mean? I think I'd enjoy that. But I think there's also a limit there where I'm okay. I always think of the diminishing returns on work that has to go into something. Like I'm a guitar player. I also play piano, and I really like playing those things. And when I first started, it's hard, and so I'd put a lot of hours into getting competent, and then I'd put hours into certain skills that I wanted to have, or certain, I would say almost more like horizontal growth that I wanted with those instruments. But I never had the drive to be one of those, just like edge best at something kind of when it comes to a lot of things, because it takes so much more time, so much more dedication to squeak out that extra 5 or 10% to where you're like the best in the world kind of thing. And I'd rather just be like pretty darn good at that kind of thing. And so even with myself, I feel like I'm competitive. I have a drive up to pretty darn good, and then that's it. And there's people obviously on my YouTube channel that tell me all kinds of big superlatives about me, but I feel instead that I'm just like.
What's an example?
Oh, well, I mean, like, there's no way I could say these without sounding like a complete.
Go ahead.
But like, you'll get comments that are like, actually, I'm not a big fan of comments that have to bring down other creators at the same time. Like, I'll heart a comment that's like, really enjoying your videos. They're really like, making my week or whatever. It's like, love it. Thanks for saying that. But if it's a comment like, finally glad to see somebody who's doing this versus the other bozos or whatever, and it's like, we don't need none of that,
Right.
But the idea is people do seem to want to proffer the idea that there's some sort of oasis that my channel is compared to some desert of, when I don't see it, I've got like my subscriptions are a bunch of
Yeah.
other people in my space, and I think they're all making bangers,
Maybe part of that is similar to something that we experience or are like specifically on Unbox Therapy around brands. How in order for one product to be good, the other one has to suck.
That's frustrating as a creator.
When you're a fan of something, for whatever reason, it seems to be that the highest level of enthusiasm comes along with criticism of the alternative. Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you become a rabid fan of a thing, then you start to become a crusader. You go out and you destroy anything that could possibly harm the thing that you love so much. Like, what is the fandom in K-pop? K-pop fandom. They're called the Army, aren't they?
Are they about knocking down other K-pop groups though?
Will's like, don't even say the name right now. We just summoned the Army.
Yeah.
But do they go and go on other threads and be like, your band sucks or band whatever?
I think only if they consider it to be required. Like if someone says something bad, or like if you said something bad right now, then you are a target of the Army.
See, I would have thought that they would not like all K-pop, but be more likely to support.
No, it extends even outside of K-pop. They can mobilize against anything. Anything they don't like.
That's hard to understand the motivation.
Like fandom to that extent?
Yeah.
I know. I've had trouble with that my whole life. I have a hard time going to a concert just because it feels I'm not as good of a fan as everybody else.
Yeah, you don't even have the T-shirt.
Yeah, but I look around and I'm like, man, I feel like I'm not extracting enough here to warrant having this spot.
You're taking up a real fan's.
I'm taking up a real fan's. I have a fake fan complex. Like, how much am I a fan of this particular thing? But the problem with that is I feel like I have a hard time being a fan of almost everything to the extent that other people. I don't know what that's about. I think there's also something about the discrepancy, just the one-to-many aspect of like the stage, which we talked about earlier. The how uncomfortable that is. The formatting is makes me uncomfortable. I'm not saying that I'm nervous of this situation.
Right.
I've gone to plenty of events and things like that. It's just that, yeah.
Even I guarantee that you get it with phones and everything else, but even with cameras, obviously, last however many months or whatever, I've been mostly using Sony stuff. But prior to that, I was using other things, and prior to that, I was using Blackmagic. Prior to that, I was using Panasonic, whatever, right? But it's hard for me sometimes to remember that some viewers maybe only saw that one video, and that they're also a diehard brand person. So I'm sure for you, it should be even less so, where people should know, well, Lou reviews everything, or like every brand, so he's not iPhone only. But yet I bet you, I bet you have videos where when you talk about the iPhone, it's like iPhone chill or whatever, and it's like, but obviously you talk about all of them, but it's that video that they saw, and it's like they need to tell you that they're not okay with you talking about iPhone right now. Like
for me, my perspective has always been about the whole industry, progress in general. This idea that even if you like the iPhone, then you need to like the brands that compete with iPhone, because that's what's supplying the pressure for the thing to improve.
You should be happy when somebody posts a video of like, here's a competitor that's killing it, because what's that expression? All boats rise in the high tide or whatever, Certainly when you're talking about progress, let's say in the form of technology. Yeah. When people stop innovating, microprocessors was the perfect example of this with Intel. When there was that period where Intel was just like, that's the only answer. Intel slowed right down, and the iterative advantages year over year were just like, they weren't even worth talking about. And then now that AMD's kind of come back in and was like, oh, we got some stuff, then not only is now, there's still that brand war thing where now you don't really want to talk Intel that much because AMD's the brand to be promoting. But we saw what happened when there's like a 7 to 10 year period of there being no real competition prices go up and iteration goes down, or like rather like the degree of it, like how small and the iterations are. It's bad. It's bad for everybody.
Well, and this is why most countries have rules against acquisitions of other companies and monopolistic practices,
Totally.
because they stifle innovation. Competition tends to have the opposite effect. So when I read a comment which is suggesting that some brand is the worst thing ever, or a piece of trash, or whatever it might be, I can't envision it that way, because I'm imagining the whole picture. And then on top of that, if you're saying, hey, Samsung pushes Apple, there's even one more level of granularity in the world of phones, which is that Samsung supplies Apple with the displays that go into iPhones. Samsung's success is directly correlated to your iPhone fandom.
That's great. The same thing happens with cameras. Sony makes sensors that go in other cameras.
Absolutely.
And people complain about something about that Sony camera without knowing that, like, hey, that exact same sensor is in the camera that you're saying is the better camera. So one way or another, we want new sensors from Sony.
Or the sports team that you cheer for that needs another team to play.
Yeah. Or with sports teams, especially where we're from. I don't know. Did you grow up in this area your whole life?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. I felt like there was always two. You either were a Maple Leafs fan in hockey or you were a Red Wings fan. And there was like this, like...
That's because you're more that way, though.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I was right in the middle.
Yeah.
So it was like pretty extreme like that. But what I always thought was funny was neither one of those teams have many Canadians on them.
Right.
You know, there's like 4 Canadians in both teams.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So it's like, what are we actually cheering for here? A shirt? You know, like...
Absolutely, you're cheering for... shirts and logos and symbols are easier to cheer for. People can come and go, right? They can... brands are powerful.
And that's what I was saying. That's just a brand. It's another brand, you know.
Absolutely, it's a brand.
The Maple Leafs are a huge, successful brand, even if they don't win at hockey. But they're a tremendous brand. Yeah.
Exactly. That logo means more than any one player could ever mean to people. It's subconscious. They've grown up with exposure. They've seen the poster. They've seen the promos. They've seen whatever number of interactions. I mean, Apple benefits in a similar fashion. It's not Steve Jobs. It's bigger than that, no matter what it is that he might have brought to it. And presumably the same thing happens to companies like Tesla eventually and so on. If they're going to continue, then they have to transcend the person. And it's actually kind of similar to the influencer stuff we were talking about earlier, where the person has problems. The person is prone to folly and all the human aspects. The brand is pristine.
Yeah, same with sports. It's like, get that player out of here. You know, we need a new whatever.
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
They love it. They're committed to the brand. The people are disposable.
That's right.
Yeah, that guy that I cheered for 5 years, he's done. He's washed up. Get rid of him. Absolutely.
Is that what YouTube will be like? Do you think you can swap out, keep Unbox Therapy cooking, but get Lou out of there?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. That's I've talked about it on this show many times, that eventually I feel like that makes sense.
And then you can guest on your own channel after that. You show every once in a while. You know?
I can guest on my own channel, or I can just transition into other projects, because same time, man. You live life. You live this life. You got whatever that window is, and I got so many things I want to try. I got too many things I want to try. Does it mean that I want to see some of the stuff I created go away? Not necessarily. I would love for multiple things to continue to exist in a format that I'm still happy with, but connected to in such a fashion that allows me to approach other projects and uncover new interests and just explore more, because you get caught up. It just becomes autopilot. You know how to do it. You keep doing it. And one of the things that having some degree of success unlocks is opportunity, but only if you arrange things in such a fashion to truly approach those opportunities, or whatever you consider to be an interesting opportunity. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about like other things that would be cool to watch happen or to take part in, projects, things like that.
You know something. This is one where I struggle with, and I can give you like, I think I have a couple examples here. So for me, I feel like I've always, this is probably a flaw in my character, and I don't know how to fix it, but I feel like I'm always rushing to some kind of finish line. Like I almost like want to win at life or something, be done. I think of it like a video game. The way that I play video games is I play it for the story. I'm more story driven than, like I said, like competitive online stuff. And then right before the ending, I'll usually complete all the other stuff. So I get like 100% the game, then beat it, get the ending, and then like good. I did that game perfect and it's done and I beat it. And I feel like I do that same thing with life. It's like I try to make a list of everything I got to do, check off all the boxes, and do it as quickly as I can, and then sort of complete life. And not to like die. I'm not trying to get like morbid here, but I mean like in terms of like the problem is though then you like if you don't have any goals, then what are you doing? What's going to get you out of bed and stuff like that. And I have trouble sometimes seeing life as it's not about some. This is obviously one of the oldest sayings in the book, but it's not about that finish line thing, right? It's the journey along the way, yada yada. But I find it hard to, because I can be very efficient and drive and do good work quickly and that kind of thing. But I only do that if I feel like I'm rushing towards something. And when I take a step back and slow down, I feel like I lose myself, where other people tell you would lose yourself if you had no goals. That's my preamble, but here's my actual thing. So you mentioned money, for example, because money is one where you can, I think, for the most part, everybody knows money. Everybody's got financial goals they're going for, whatever, or expenses. If you look at somebody like whoever, Jeff Bezos, it doesn't matter, who just has infinite money. And now I think he actually did just step back. But my question I had for him like 5 years ago was like, why are you still doing it, man? Like, why aren't you just sitting on a boat or something? Like that's the part that I always struggled with is, even you, I don't know your financial situation, but I mean, you've been doing it for 10 years and the channel's successful. If you were even moderately smart with your money, you're probably like reasonably financially set. But your motivation for doing YouTube can't be like, gotta pay them bills. You know what I mean? Like it can't be that. So why do you want to keep doing things that are in this space when it is work, right?
I think it's what you said about completing tasks, having a plan or a checklist is a more organized version of the way that I interact with things. I think I feel healthier when I'm getting things done. I don't know how important it is what those things are, but I know that my experience through life is having a lack of, I don't even want to use the word productivity, but like a lack of obvious daily accomplishments, whatever they happen to be, is not a positive thing for me. That for me is despair. So, I mean, in the case of Jeff Bezos, he did move a little bit away from Amazon, but now he's trying to go to space. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's.
You always need something to do.
I don't know how to live without a target. I shouldn't say I don't know how to. I probably did at points in my life. I don't like living without a target. What I'm talking about right now is more shifting the target.
What do you use to tell you where to shift it to, though? Like, what's the drive? Because that's. If I was Jeff Bezos, how would you know what to make the target? I guess space, sure, why not? Right?
Yeah, I don't think that target is actually as important as most people think. Like that.
You could just throw a dart if you wanted, and then just go after that.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. If you decided that you were going to bake bread,
I've totally done this. I had a whole like sourdough starter making my own bread.
Okay, there you go, and you're not alone. Everybody, or you're gonna have a vegetable garden, or like whatever. The fact is that the reward for us, I don't know, I can't speak on everybody's psyche, but it's progress. It's participating in progress or driving it in some fashion, that there is some degree of movement or some change in the environment that's commensurate with your input. that feels better than not being able to impact or to not have input at all, but instead to be a passenger, or instead to be waiting around for something to happen or relaxing, whatever you might want to call it. I don't know if these type of studies are true or not, but I'm sure I've seen it referenced places where people who have worked jobs for a long period of time and then quit are more likely to degrade more rapidly.
Right. Yeah. The risks of retirement.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've read other articles of people who retired early who had regretted it. Like, it was supposed to be this amazing idea. And then I just feel like if it was so great, everyone would be doing it. Or at least everybody who would do it if it was as rewarding as a retirement commercial makes it seem. There's some sort of a pull. And you said, I mean, we were talking about the word competition. I don't necessarily know if that's all encompassing. I think it's just a reward of working towards something. I think video games provide that for people, even those that may have difficulty grappling with the real world versions of that. But the ability to progress, map your progression, witness your progression is I think for all of us, a rewarding thing. And it continues to be a rewarding thing for me. Now, you say, where do you point your target? I just look at that intuitively. Like, what I just try to expand my exposure to different things and then see what sticks. Like, why am I still thinking about that? Why is that project still in my head? How sticky is it? Mm-hmm. Maybe I should pursue that type of thing. And then the only way to figure out what those things are that might potentially stick is just to expose yourself to different people, personalities, projects, content. Things like this seem to, I don't know, maybe art, music. I don't know what it is that actually triggers an interest in a particular thing. I'm one of these people, I've been talking to these guys, where I watch YouTube less, but I read Wikipedia more. Like, why? I don't know. Why? Why am I got such limited spare time. I'm literally waking up in the morning. I have a moment of spare time in between kids and just chaos. And I'm reading a Wikipedia page about somebody from 1592. You know what I'm saying? Like, why?
Do you do it because something was like, I find I read Wikipedia when I have some sort of thought in my head that was like, what was the deal with that again? And then I have to like look it up to like, you know.
Normally for me, it would be some news article, something that happened. And then that story would lead to a small detail, which would be unknown to me.
Right.
That I don't know about that detail.
Yeah.
I would then click through to that detail. I would end up on the comprehensive explanation of that detail, which would then lead me to the derivative of that. Mm-hmm. And then that on top of that. And it's just some type of information contagion. I have to keep going.
I do stuff like that too. And Wikipedia has the links. So then you're like, and they partnered with Jean-Baptiste, whatever. You're like, and who is that? You know, and you click on that and you're reading a whole new page.
Exactly. And so I think like that's a recent inspiration is that I'd be reading the biography on some guy and I'd be like, he did all that, all those things.
Do you ever find yourself where you have like 40, because you kept opening up new tabs?
Absolutely.
Or you're like, well, I'm going to need to know more about that fact, but I'm in the middle of a paragraph.
Yes.
So I'll open up a new tab on that. Next thing you know, you're like, I'm never going to get all this read.
Yeah, absolutely. But it does, I think it helps me, reading a biography of a historical figure does help me to personalize, humanize some of these like extraordinary things that people do, because I mean, you get people coming up to you like you've done something amazing. Like, oh my God, you did all that. And it's like, I don't know.
You mean like you as a YouTuber?
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Right?
Yeah. I press videos, I talk to the camera.
It's like, listen, you know, I did a thing. I found a thing. I kept going with the thing. If anybody asked me how it happened, I'd say I was unusually persistent on one thing. That happened to be
that's such a huge component of this.
a thing. I was unusually persistent. But then you look at the way that certain people throughout history tackled the unknown and approached risk. And like, man, they were flying. People were just doing stuff. And I don't know if it's that people had more time because they were spending less time consuming. There was nothing to look at. I mean, maybe they read the newspaper and then they went and did things. I'm not sure. Or was it our relationship with risk in general? Like, look at where we are. Look where we live. Look at all the opportunities been presented to us. You can't go that wrong. You can't fail that hard relative to human history.
But maybe that also explains why there's a different type of innovation these days then, where it's not as like people are putting wings on their bicycle and trying to fly across the Atlantic or whatever. And instead, everything is so easy. And I mean, well, different countries, and there's parts of the world where we still have to figure out malaria and where to poop
Absolutely.
or whatever. You know?
I'm talking very specifically right here. Like what I'm trying to say is if you're that uncomfortable with risk here, I hate to break it to you, but it ain't risky.
It's not ever going to get easier. It's not ever going to get more opportune than it is now.
World's lowest risk factor ever in human history is where you and I sit right now with the opportunities presented in front of us right now.
So based on you reading these historical, biographies, whatever, do you feel like the innovation that comes these days from North America even, is it as, what's the word? Is it as significant, but just, expressed in a different way? Or do you think that kind of, great innovation has sort of slowly trickled down in terms of its impressiveness relative to stuff before? Like, obviously, we're not going to reinvent the plane. Like, that's already a thing.
Yeah.
But whatever we are coming out with, crazy AI stuff, and like, is that equally as impressive just in its own scope? Or do you think it's,
No.
Boston Dynamics robots doing backflips and stuff?
People are and will continue to do amazing things. I don't. I guess I think of it. I'm not necessarily thinking of it in terms of innovation, but more in terms of the breadth of what. It's like people. The cure for boredom in the past was to do something new, to diversify your activities. Now it feels it's like so easy to cure your boredom while having zero impact, while not in a participatory fashion, but instead because you have an abundance of distraction, an opportunity.
Yeah, you're not going to accidentally stumble into something great by curing your boredom today, because you're just going to be.
There. Did you get it on the camera, Will? Like, he was just swiping. It's a trick. Yeah. It feels like you have solved something, but yet it's somehow lacking the texture necessary to really teach you something.
You ain't going to be making penicillin like this.
Very unlikely. Very unlikely. So it's more about grabbing, like, that historically you would just grab onto more things, as risky as they might be, because operating in the real world comes with real risk. Your phone screen or your Netflix doesn't. And so it's a hard sales pitch to say, hey, get up and go do it, when, like, I can't help but think of the sheer number of hours and how recent all of this is. How recent the opportunity is to sit at home and binge watch 20 hours worth of some, like, how long has that opportunity really existed in the course of human history?
Well, I can tell you that in 2010, I was switching DVDs to watch Lost. You know what I mean? I had like a few on a DVD, and that was already pretty advanced compared to. You ever try to buy a VHS box set? I had a VHS box set of season 1 of the Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous looking. Takes up your whole shelf.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, that was just 10 years ago. That the idea of
When I was a kid,
yeah,
I think in my household we had 3 tapes, and eventually we didn't. There was no reason to keep watching them. We had seen them too many times.
those are the movies. That's not even TV. Those are the Star Trek
He's
movies.
saying it's way bigger than that. He's trying to explain to you that it's way bigger than that. No, I mean, the abundance of content has surely presented a circumstance, an unprecedented circumstance. The ease of creation, the ease of sharing, and the ease of
What's funny
consuming.
about that though is the stakes for the individuals that are consumed by that, even if it's just the viewer, feel even higher. Which another Bo Burnham thing, that film 8th Grade that he made, where it was like, about a 15-year-old girl just trying to compare to what it was like when you and I were in grade 8. I didn't have a phone. You didn't. There's no way you had a phone in grade 8, right?
No.
So all your problems were based on sort of regular, goofy interpersonal things with the people at school, and nobody knew anything that you didn't put forward. But now kids that are, growing up, I honestly can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. But as much as we can say that there's very little risk and there's very little to do with social media and how the platforms work, to those kids now, the stakes feel just as big because that's what their full exposure is. So now I don't want to guess because I actually don't know. I'm going to say something. I'm going to sound like a boomer here that doesn't know what I'm talking about. But
we definitely are.
But it's going to be more like, oh, I posted a thing. I didn't get enough likes on Snapchat or whatever. I guess kids would be on TikTok now probably, right? So I don't know if maybe if you're in school right now and you're not killing it on TikTok, then maybe you suck. I don't know, and maybe you get bullied. Maybe you get bullied if your TikToks are lame. You know what I mean?
I'm sure that happens.
When you talked about early sharing, if you shared a cute picture of your dog and nobody liked it on Facebook, well, what do you care? You know what I mean? Like you said, why were you posting that in the first place? But I'm thinking that maybe now, if you post a TikTok and it doesn't succeed, then when you go to school the next day, are you going to get roasted?
Sure.
You know what I mean? So the life is so integrated into these simple things that are so consumable and so irrelevant, yet somehow they're everything. It's such a bizarre.
The magnitude of something so insignificant yet so significant temporarily.
Yeah.
Within those groups. Yeah, I guess along the way I've always been more towards the learning style of actually doing the thing as opposed to strictly theoretical. It would be, hey, if you go off that bike jump, you're going to hurt yourself. Okay, Let me try that. And then go off the bike jump, smash your face or whatever. And then be like, okay, interesting. And then whatever extra detail that comes from the experience of having done the thing is, I value greatly. And therefore, getting back to how we got over here about some historical figure who did all these different activities, when I think of the alternative to doing the actual activity and then feeling like you know something about it versus actually doing it, like YouTube being another experience of such, I don't want to give up the chance to have those experiences and uncover or learn the things that I didn't even know were available because I didn't approach the thing in the first place. So this would be any area of actual life, any potential experience, and of course there's way too much for you to ever do. But as I've gotten older, I start to realize the limitation, like how the window is shrinking. And how what I would hope to unlock is the opportunity to maximize extraction from those potential experiences.
You're a perfect candidate then for that, life advice stuff where they always say you got to get out there and, experiment and experience things and say yes to everything, all that kind of stuff. You're putting a practical reason behind it.
Yeah,
which is that,
I feel like I represented it terribly there because I'm definitely not.
No, I'm with it because the end result is that even if you know, we don't need to big up the actual experiences that much, but there's something to extract from it. Whether you learn something about yourself, you learn what direction to
Yeah,
go.
that sounded very like go to Costa Rica or something. That's not really what I meant by it. I was speaking more in the original.
Well, do you have any example? Like, what's something
I was
lately
thinking
that
more
you?
in the original framework of when I was younger, I had the opportunity to fail a lot.
Right.
And when it was happening, it felt unnecessary and painful. But in retrospect, your failures eventually contribute to your successes because they're such great lessons because they're so real. So what I'm just talking about is finding a way to remove myself from certain projects to have the opportunity to go fail elsewhere. That's all I meant.
You got anything going on right now that you say would be encapsulating that idea? What's stealing your eye these days?
I have a couple of projects I can't say that are crazy and stupid, and
Do you think we'll ever see them, or are these like?
well, if you do, I won't be associated. You won't know that it's me that did it.
Okay.
So that's a little insight into that, or you can maybe guess if you think that it's me that did it. But that seems really exciting. Anonymous things, or anonymous things. And like I have another channel idea that I want to do that I wouldn't be associated with promoting nothing. I want it to grow completely organically, absent of any external promotion or any type of sauce, any type of input, to really get a sense for what the platform is now, or get a better sense of it. That was Kirk. That was Kirk all the way down there. But there's a couple versions.
Is that
of
the main motivation there? Is you really want to just sort of like put your finger on the pulse of YouTube in 2022 or whatever?
Maybe it's that, or maybe it's. I think a lot of it derives from guilt too, just feeling guilty about. That's part of the thing about putting out stuff that's successful is if feeling like people like something that you did more than you even do. Like, I don't know if you're like that, where you hate everything you've ever made.
There's a good chunk of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some videos that I thought, that's a pretty good video, but most of the videos I go,
You upload it while your face is cringing as you click on. Like, God, is that what that one is? Is that the final form?
Thanks for going back to my channel at that moment, by the way, Will. Like, you got anything you don't like? And then Will just shows like my whole channel or whatever. Yeah, most of that.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that's another common thread with all this? Is like, it seems almost like a prerequisite that you have to kind of not like yourself that much. Like, how much do you like yourself?
How do you know that? How do you even gauge that? I never really think about that. I think about other people, of like, how well do I click with somebody else? I don't ever think about whether or not I click with myself. Yeah, I'm stuck with me.
No, I mean, the thread has been that a lot of people who have chosen this path are hypercritical because you've taken on this role of being the host, the director, the editor.
It's too much Larry when you have yourself all doing all those things. You know, I definitely feel that when people want to watch my videos with me because it's like, oh, you got a new video posted or whatever. It's like, I don't want to see that. You know, I've seen that enough. You know, I've seen myself enough.
Yeah.
Like, period.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think in this case, it's actually healthier to not like yourself that much, especially when you have people telling you. I think it's actually, well, at least for me, I think it's imperative if you have people telling you that they like your stuff so frequently. I mean, I guess you get a healthy dose of people that hate you too. I haven't edited myself in a video previously, but for me, the entire proposal of editing something is the trying to, and for us, we edit a YouTube video. For others, they touch up an Instagram post. For others, they fix some element that they don't.
Yeah, you take the mole off or whatever. You know, things you don't like about yourself.
It seems small, but I don't know.
What I think I should like maybe put a little twist of positive about myself on my YouTube channel, though, is that one thing I'm thankful for with YouTube that I feel like I get to do is that I get, which I know is the opposite of what we were talking about earlier. I was going to say be myself, because you said that how much of yourself are you I think what it is
this seems to be a recurring question on this show.
maybe that'll be one of your.
I'm going to ask you. We're going to formalize it.
Okay.
What percentage of you is on your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So. Okay, I think fairly.
You meaning the all-encompassing, the person that few people really know, I guess. Interpret it however you want.
I put a decent chunk. Maybe that just makes it seem like I don't have that many facets. But I would say, maybe 20, 25%.
20, 25.
I know it seems like a lot because I feel like I'm just sort of like big pieces of a pie. I don't feel like I have as many slices as a lot of people do. Like, and I even try to integrate. So let's say it was 20%, but of that 20%, 95% of that is like super authentic of me in there. I don't really have much of a character. And even, like the more recent like set that I started doing and stuff like that, it's always just trying to really put myself, like I try to put more of myself into it and less of what I think would be necessarily good for YouTube. So my current set now is like, these are like actual tools that I've been using for a really long time. The table is like my actual table that I got from a friend of mine. And like, it's a lot of like me, and more recent videos I've been trying to do more of myself, but there's things that I don't put on YouTube. Like I said, I don't really do much with music because I like to keep that as like a relaxing thing. So I don't want to make it work, And I used to not really do much with computers, but lately I've been doing a little bit more computer stuff on there. So people might watch my videos and not realize like, oh, he's like a major computer nerd, or like he plays piano a lot or something. But I also feel though that they could watch my videos and go, this guy's got to be a computer nerd, just based on the way I don't really filter myself a lot, if that makes sense. So whatever quirks and that kind of thing, they go in there, and I still do try to put in some humor and some mistakes, and so I think it's an authentic portion. It's just that I omit things that I think are relevant. But I think I feel like more people have more aspects to them than I feel like I do. And that's not like for me. I just feel like I feel like I focus on fewer things more intensely, if that makes sense.
That's fair. Now, what if we were to take, let's imagine a relationship in your life with a friend or family member, something like this. I presume that they would feel that they know you better than an person in the audience on the YouTube channel knows you.
Sure, yeah.
So the question then becomes those extra elements that allows them to know you. It's probably less in the realm of your interests and more in the realm of your.
Well, I think
the way you think about things.
This structure that you're doing here is good for, maybe letting a person be more uneditedly fluid with what they're doing. I don't feel like I wouldn't say much here with you that I wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable making a video about, but I just might not make that video, or I might not, or I might cut out a lot of the stuff that I thought was, oh, that's too slow, or that's less interesting. So it's not that it's, more authentic. It's just you get a more limited experience, I suppose. Where this is good because you get a more fuller experience of potentially. Like if we would have talked cameras for 2 hours, it probably would have essentially been similar themes to what my videos would have been about, but just more exploring more things for deeper. So I don't know how that cuts into then. But friends and family, though, I don't really talk about cameras for 2 hours with friends and family. So, but nobody wants to watch a YouTube channel of you just like talking about the stuff you talk to with your friends and family, right?
I don't know.
Because even this. I've listened to some of these episodes. You do try to focus on things. It's like you try to steer it a little bit to like, what are other people at least going to want to hear about? In your Dave video, you were like, we're stepping away from the Apple thing. I'm sure there's people at home that are thinking, get Dave to talk more about Apple, which means it's in your head. You can't erase the fact that there's an audience, because really we could just be sitting here going, like I could have been asking you questions like, what games do you play? And then we could be like, rambling on for way too long about like, oh, you remember when that guy did that thing and the other thing? You're like, yeah, I know, right? And we're like high-fiving or whatever. And it's like, do people want to see that? I don't know. Maybe they do. But that's what you do with your friends and family, right? Or not. I don't know.
I find it, you might be right. Maybe there is some steering that takes place. I think it's mostly at the beginning of the conversations or closer to the front end, that I've had so far, the longer they go on, the realer they get, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
a bit strange in the beginning where it's still sort of almost a performance. It's probably something to do with the fact that like there's some sort of pageant that takes place. We're sitting down, the person's arriving, we're doing the right social things, and then we're like, okay, we're rolling.
I got an exercise for you then. When you leave here, who are you going to see first, probably, of like family or friends? Who's the first person you're going to see?
Probably one of my kids, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, say something to me that you think you'd be likely to say to your kid when you see them or whatever. What's the likely conversation to come up?
We're probably going to be immediately preparing because one of them has a baseball game tonight. So we're immediately going to be preparing to go there. So I'd be like, are you ready? Did you practice today? Or
and that's probably a big portion of your life, right? Your kids' baseball stuff, right?
But I do talk about it here to a certain extent. But here's one thing I've noticed about this show, or at least my tendency is, it seems it's intimate from the standpoint that you're talking about like things that people don't typically talk about, but it's not intimate from a detail perspective, like how you would normally tell a story to somebody that you know. It's more intimate in the sense that it's like
you're trying to keep it broad enough for somebody to get on board.
Yeah, it's like you're zoomed out. You're talking about ideas. You're talking.
You know that sense when you're in a group and maybe it's like you and your best friend, but then there's a couple new people that are sitting in the circle. So everything that you kind of talk about instead, you almost kind of turn your body and you talk a little bit more broadly about it so that the other people aren't, I mean, unless you're just a monster and you just like exclude the other people from the conversation. Don't do that, kids. But so you kind of talk more broadly, right? You're like, oh, so, we were at a concert the other day. This was one of those ones with the big, I feel like that's kind of what YouTube is like. It's like you want to include everybody in the conversation so you don't get so
caught in the weeds.
Yeah, you try to
too granular.
You keep trying to bring it back wide.
Or if you do introduce detail, then you try to immediately find the point of relation that someone can draw from.
Exactly.
That someone may have had a similar experience to, or whatever.
Literally, you're doing it right now.
You are.
Like I'm
doing that right
exactly,
now. Yeah.
Because that's how that's the only way this works, right?
It is. But I think the same can be applied in regular conversation because we have all types of relationships with people that there are these like unwritten social rules around which subjects we're going to talk about in life.
I wonder if that's why streaming, for the streamers that go hours and hours and hours all the time, has a different sort of like really serious appeal for some people, because I feel like there's a bit more of that shorthand and intensity that you would get from, especially if the streamers, I don't watch a lot of streams, but I've seen clips of something where I'm interested in the thing, and the stream almost feels like they don't even care that I'm there watching it on this clip on YouTube afterwards. It's like they were doing a whole thing with the regular watchers of the stream, and they got all these like inside jokes and everything, and you're just out there watching it for whatever the title was, because maybe there's something in there that you're curious about. You're just watching it like, I don't know I don't know why they're putting those emojis in the chat. I don't know what this guy keeps saying every 15 seconds, I feel like there's that, but on YouTube, we don't do that as much.
That's extreme intimacy right there.
Yeah.
The streamer. But as you see, the metrics are different. Like what is a successful stream is not the same metrics as a successful video.
Totally different.
Yeah, because it's inherently exclusive for whatever group understands whatever you just mentioned, the inside thing.
Yeah.
Subscriptions is the reason they have different monetization structures and all that stuff, because it's a different type of relationship. But
do you ever do much streaming?
No, I haven't experimented with it much. I think we've done this live previously. I don't know what people think about it, if it's necessary or not. Live introduces a whole nother element, though.
There's also like a pressure, not even just on you, but like, so many things can go wrong, and live can be just a disaster.
I know.
I'm constantly sweating when we're live. It's a disaster.
Do you think that would have altered this conversation at all had this been live right now?
I don't know. I think that'd be hard to tell. I don't feel like nothing came up. I can tell you for people, if you listen to this part, nothing came up that we edited out as far as I know. That was like, it's like, yikes, we got to get off of that. You know? So I think this particular conversation probably would have went well. You know, we probably wouldn't have left all the dead air when we went to the bathroom.
Oh, right. That part. Yeah. No, I honestly, I feel my sense after having these conversations is just a sense. It's just a feeling of appreciation to be able to partake in it. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel appreciative that whatever mechanical components necessary to put something together that has resulted in these conversations taking place, it gets into that experiential realm where I feel like I've now derived something. I hope it's the same for you.
No, I got nothing out of this conversation.
That's what I was worried about. Because it's like, it's weird, man. It's, on social media, I just said, come do the thing. You're like, all right, cool, awesome. It's actually amazing how, what did we need to do? We had to put some chairs and some mics and have a space, and then reach out to people, and then it all came together. I wish I would have done it earlier, and I hope that whoever listens to it is able to derive something from it. I know it's absolute scrambled eggs, and
I like how meta we got in this one. It was like we started talking about how to talk, having a conversation in a podcast, and
I think we may have opened some doors here that were previously closed. Like, I don't know that I think we may have explored certain areas that were different than the previous episodes so far. I think we set the bar to a certain extent. I don't know who's going to go on this ride. Like, that's the thing. I'm speaking to the audience right now. I do not know who is still with us here, because you are absolutely correct with the meta aspect. But I hope, I'm imagining a character right now that has made it here. And I hope that feels like some sort of an accomplishment. But I'm not sure. It might not be.
That's good. That's good stuff.
Shout out to anybody who made it to this moment right now. Anybody, everybody. This is a thing on the internet now.